Chapter 50:18. Xiao So was slightly startled. What is it? We don't have any friendship between us. Di Beichen's ink-black jade-like eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. His tone was resolute and cold, without the slightest hint of friendship. As Di Beichen's voice fell, time seemed to have stopped in an instant, and the surroundings were silent. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. They didn't expect Di Beichen to even reject her in such a straightforward manner. It was completely impossible to refute. Almost everyone felt that Di Beichen would at least hesitate for a moment in the face of Xiao So's pitiful plea for help. However, how cruel was Di Beichen's answer? Friendship? We don't have any friendship between us. If I remember correctly, you previously joined forces with Jun Lingxuan to deal with my wife. Di Beichen's eyes narrowed into a line. His cold voice made everyone feel a shocking hostility for no reason. He reached out and grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's arm. His incomparably handsome face was wild and arrogant. It was as if he was swearing an oath to everyone. Anyone who has evil intentions towards my wife is someone that I, Di Beichen, must kill. His cold and resolute voice was filled with killing intent. Di Beichen's gaze was evil. Obviously, Xiao So and Jun Lingxuan were the same existence in his eyes. The surrounding practitioners couldn't help but be dumbfounded after hearing Di Beichen's words. However, they were even more aware of Bailey Hongzhuang's position in his heart. I've already heard that the young master of the Di family only loves Bailey Hongzhuang. Now it seems that this isn't wrong at all. I'm afraid that we've underestimated it before. Bailey Hongzhuang is completely Di Beichen's reverse-scale existence. Whoever dares to anger Bailey Hongzhuang is equivalent to angering Di Beichen. Actually, it's normal for Bailey Hongzhuang to be valued. If she didn't come from the lower realm with her ability, she would be the pride of the heavens. Everyone looked at each other. Previously, they had only included Di Beichen in the list of people they could not afford to provoke. Now they had included Bailey Hongzhuang as well. After all, offending either of them was tantamount to offending the Di family. Most importantly, they felt that the Di family was definitely going to rise in power. Di Beichen's words were like a sharp knife that pierced Xiao So's heart. Even though she had already shifted her attention to Jun Lingxuan, Di Beichen was still the one who made her fall in love with him at first sight. She had thought that no matter what choice Di Beichen had made, he had at least been moved by her. However, the truth was so cruel. In front of so many people, she felt that she had lost all face. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang standing next to Di Beichen, her skin was whiter than snow, her cheeks were rosy, and her eyes were full of affection. She understood that Di Beichen had always placed Bailey Hongzhuang at the top of his heart. At this moment, she suddenly envied Bailey Hongzhuang. If someone was willing to place her at the top of his heart, she would be so satisfied. Lin Yi and Lin Qianqian couldn't help but look at each other. I suddenly feel that second cousin's figure is more stalwart. Don't you think your second cousin is cruel? Lin Qianqian raised her eyebrows. It was the first time she had seen someone reject a beauty so ruthlessly. Chapter 50:19. Listening to Lin Yi's words, Lin Qianqian pretended to think, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. If it were me, I would think that. It's great. Haha. Lin Yi laughed and nodded. Yes. You should have such an attitude towards other women. It is best to treat yourself well. Not only Lin Yi and Lin Qianqian, but in fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had become the object of envy of all the women present. Where can you find such a handsome man with such identity, status who is so infatuated? However, Bailey Hongzhuang found him. How can this not make people envious? Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen. She had always been clear about Di Beichen's feelings for her. She had never doubted it. However, she did not expect Di Beichen to announce it in public at this moment. She was a little surprised, but she was more surprised. It was this man who made her have no regrets. Xiao So was gloomy for a while. Everyone's gaze made her face turn green and red, but she couldn't help it. Sister, this Di Beichen is too much. Xiao Sudong's face was pale. He didn't expect Di Beichen to be so disrespectful. It seems that the Di family can't help. Jun Lingxuan's face was slightly gloomy. The situation in front of him really made him feel tricky. The most important thing was that he couldn't show despair. Otherwise, the family's children would only be more desperate. Xiao Shou nodded. She was still immersed in her own emotions, but after hearing this, she also came back to her senses. Now was obviously not the time to be busy with sadness. The most important thing was how to survive and protect her own life. Nangong Yuqing and Chu Yingming also looked at each other after seeing Jun Lingxuan and Lin Qianqian's failure. This really cut off all their thoughts. How about, we go back before the ground completely collapses? Maybe those locusts are gone. Nangong Yuqing looked at everyone. It was obviously impossible to pass through the school of fish, but if they turned back now, there might be a glimmer of hope. After all, they didn't see the locusts after that. Perhaps the locusts had already disappeared. Hearing Nangong Yuqing's words, many cultivators' eyes lit up. Compared to the hopeless situation ahead, there was a chance of survival if they turned back. As long as they could survive, they didn't care where they went. The locusts will not disappear. Even if they go, it will only be another way to die. Chu Yingming's eyes were filled with the light of contemplation as he suddenly spoke. Why? Nangong Yuqing frowned. He didn't understand why Chu Yingming was so certain. Don't you think the environment here is strange? Chu Yingming looked at everyone. From the moment we were chased by locusts to the moment we encountered this shoal of fish, it was like a checkpoint after checkpoint, a test for us. Now that the river was collapsing, it was clearly telling us that there was no way out. If you don't succeed, you'll lose your life. At first, he didn't understand this point, but after he calmed down and connected all the dots, he naturally understood. It was just like how they normally trained. This was also a type of training, but the risk was even greater. After hearing this, Xiao Shou and the others looked at each other and began to seriously think about what he had said. Chapter 50-20. So there is no hope for us? Nangong Yuqing's face was pale. He didn't want to lose his life. Originally, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, but now there was no hope at all. If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself. Chu Yingming didn't intend to persuade Nangong Yuqing. It didn't matter to him whether Nangong Yuqing lived or died. The only thing he cared about was whether he could survive. Seeing this, Nangong Yuqing's heart sank. He also understood that Chu Yingming didn't need to lie to him at this time. Most importantly, he knew that Chu Yingming's words were very reasonable. Now everything was out of their control. From the moment they stepped into this place, they might have already fallen into someone else's trap. Then what should we do now? Jun Lingxuan's expression was complicated. They couldn't go forward and they couldn't go back. This was equivalent to completely locking them in here. However, the ground under their feet was rapidly sliding down. It wouldn't be long before they fell into the river. Xiao Shou looked at the river and found that the fish in the river were excitedly looking at them. Apparently, they were already about to eat them. Thinking that they might be eaten by the fish, she felt a chill down her spine. She didn't want to end up like this. How about we fight to the death and directly rush over? Xiao Shou looked at Jun Lingxuan. If we continue to stay here, we will die. If we all rush over, at least some of us may survive. Although the number of fish in the river was not small, if they rushed over together, as long as they spread out, there would be some lucky people who could survive. Rather than waiting for death here, it was better to fight. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan looked at Xiao Shou and lowered his voice. So, don't worry. Let's wait a little longer. Wait. Xiao Shou was surprised. She didn't understand why they were still waiting at this time. Did they not give up? The D family won't help us. She couldn't help but emphasize. Jun Lingxuan nodded. I know. I'm not waiting for the D family, but for Chu Yingming. Chu Yingming. Xiao Shou was slightly surprised. She was completely confused. Why is Chu Yingming waiting? He doesn't have any other choice now. No. Jun Lingxuan shook his head. Chu Yingming must have some tricks up his sleeve. Originally, he was also in a state of panic. However, he also noticed that although Chu Yingming was also very anxious, he was far less anxious than the cultivators from the other three families. This meant that Chu Yingming still had a trump card. Although he didn't know what it was, as long as Chu Yingming hadn't used it, he would continue to wait. Xiao Shou couldn't help but look at Chu Yingming. After calming down, she also found that Chu Yingming's reaction was somewhat strange. Although he was anxious, he didn't panic. He immediately understood what Jun Lingxuan meant. The ground began to collapse rapidly, and the river began to submerge everyone's feet. The school of fish rushed over, and cries of alarm came from everyone's mouth. The piranhas are rushing up. Damn it! Why is it that even my essence energy is being suppressed while standing here? Isn't this river a little too strange? Chapter 50-21. To their horror, they discovered that the moment the river water reached their feet, their elemental energy was suppressed. Almost everyone wanted to use their origin power to rise into the air, but they found that they couldn't. As the river widened, the effect of the air restriction was completely revealed. The piranhas had been waiting for a long time, so they immediately rushed up, not giving anyone time to react. Young master, what should we do? The Chu family cultivators anxiously looked at Chu Yingming. Facing the school of fish, they were really caught unprepared. Chu Yingming heard the screams around him and hesitated. In the end he made a decision, but his gaze became deeper. In the next moment, under everyone's astonished gaze, a huge toad appeared in front of Chu Yingming. The toad's body was extremely large, and its entire body was green like green jade. It was glossy and gave off a different kind of beauty. However, this toad seemed to be in a deep sleep. After it appeared, it stood in place without moving. With the appearance of this toad, everyone immediately recognized the type of toad. This is a jade toad? Heavens! Chu Yingming actually has a jade toad. This is an extremely rare demonic beast. All this time I've only heard of it, but I've never seen it before. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw the jade toad, a trace of surprise appeared in her clear eyes. She also had some understanding of the jade toad. The jade toad was an extremely high-ranked demonic beast. Although it hadn't reached the ranks of divine beasts, it was still not comparable to ordinary demonic beasts. This demonic beast was not only rare, but it was also extremely difficult to tame. Up until now, she had never heard of anyone taming a jade toad. She didn't expect Chu Yingming to be able to do it. From the looks of it, this jade toad is still in a deep sleep. Summoning it at this time will cause quite a bit of damage to it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was crisp. It might even cause all of our previous efforts to be wasted. Once the jade toad fell into a deep sleep, it meant that the jade toad was about to advance. During the advancement process, it couldn't be disturbed. Once disturbed, it meant that it couldn't advance successfully. If it wanted to advance again in the future, the difficulty would greatly increase. Not only that, the piranhas in this river can absorb elemental energy. They will definitely absorb the jade toad's elemental energy. It would appear that Chu Yingming was forced to make such a choice. Di Beichen narrowed his bewitching eyes. Just by thinking about it, he could tell just how much despair Chu Yingming must have felt to make such a decision. However, this was a good thing for them. After all, it was not a good thing for the opponent to have such a powerful weapon. It was best to cripple him as soon as possible. Xiren and the others looked at each other. Then their gazes fell on the jade toad once again. It must be said that Chu Yingming and the jade toad posed quite a threat to them. In their line of sight, as soon as the jade toad appeared, the school of fish pounced on it and bit it. Young master, why did you summon the jade toad? When the Chu clan disciples saw Chu Yingming make such a choice, they were all stunned. They were very clear about the price Chu Yingming had paid to obtain this jade toad. Chapter 50-22. At this time, I can't think of any other way. Chu Yingming's face was gloomy. His heart was also bleeding. Only he knew how much effort he had spent on this jade toad. Now it was all for naught. However, in such a dangerous situation, his own life was more important. If he couldn't even protect his own life, then all of this would be useless. Hearing this, the Chu family's disciples were also distressed. However, they also understood that their young master was right. Right now they had no other choice. If there was even the slightest possibility, their young master wouldn't have made such a choice. When Nangong Yuqing saw that Chu Yingming had such a trump card, he couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't think that Chu Yingming would be able to do such a thing. However, the jade toad's body was so big that they could step on it to cross the river. Jun Lingxuan had already expected Chu Yingming to have a trump card, so he wasn't as surprised as the others. However, he couldn't help but sigh. If the Jade Toad successfully evolved, then with Chu Yingming's strength, his influence would definitely be stronger than before. Xiao Sou quietly let out a sigh of relief. She turned to Jun Lingxuan and said, "Lingxuan, your guess was right." Jun Lingxuan nodded. "We still have to get Chu Yingming to agree to help us." At the same time, Nangong Yuqing took the lead and said, "Chu Yingming, can you help us cross the river? We can use treasures to exchange for it." Jun Lingxuan added. Chu Yingming looked at the two and nodded. Okay. From the moment he chose to use the Jade Toad, he had already expected the result. Since he was destined to lose the Jade Toad, he had to at least earn some benefits. Otherwise, it would be a real pity. Seeing Chu Yingming agree, Jun Lingxuan and the others were overjoyed. At least they had a way to cross the river. In the next moment, the three of them took out things from their storage rings and placed them in their universe bags before handing them over to Chu Yingming. After receiving the items, Chu Yingming looked at the three and said, "In addition, I want you to promise me something." "What is it?" The three of them frowned as they looked at Chu Yingming. They didn't want to be threatened by Chu Yingming to do something they didn't want. "After we cross the river, we'll join forces to destroy the D family." Following Chu Yingming's words, Jun Lingxuan and the others stared blankly for a moment before loosening their frowns. "No problem. Jun, of course, Chu." Dealing with the D clan was something he was most willing to do. Now that Chu Yingming wanted him to do this, there was no problem at all. There was no need for Chu Yingming to bring it up. He himself wanted to do this. I Nangong, after all, the D families, he's of a s choose chut. On if they could join forces to deal with the D clan, it would be beneficial to him as well. After all, if he were to meet them alone in the future, he would have to worry about the risks. If he could deal with them now, not only would he regain his face, but he would also be able to solve a problem. Xiao Sou didn't answer, but her attitude was very clear. She was now in the same boat as Jun Lingxuan. Chapter 50-23. Please enter the text. Once we cross the river, we'll act. Chu Yingming's gaze swept across the crowd. He would never agree to help anyone cross the river if there was even the slightest bit of hesitation in their eyes. Fortunately, Jun Lingxuan and the others did not hesitate at all, which allowed him to relax. He could not tolerate the fact that his painstaking efforts over such a long period of time had been destroyed just like that. He must kill the culprit himself. Only then would he be able to vent his anger. Otherwise, he would not be able to cultivate properly no matter what. Let's cross the river. As Chu Yingming's voice fell, he immediately stepped on the Jade Toad's body and crossed the river. At the same time, the other cultivators also crossed over one after another. The sleeping Jade Toad felt uncomfortable being bitten by a group of piranhas. However, it was unable to wake up from its slumber. However, the crowd saw that the gigantic Jade Toad was rapidly shrinking and becoming food for the school of piranhas. These piranhas are really terrifying. When Xiren could not help but sigh as he watched the rare Jade Toad become food for the school of piranhas. The most shocking thing was the speed of these piranhas. It was no wonder that the cultivators from before had disappeared in the blink of an eye. With this speed, it would only take the blink of an eye to finish eating. Chu Yingming and the others seemed to be talking about something just now. Di Xiaofeng frowned slightly and looked at Di Beichen. This time Chu Yingming has suffered such a great loss. He will never let this matter rest. In my opinion, once they cross the river, they will definitely come looking for trouble with us. He had known Chu Yingming for quite some time. Although they had not interacted much, he had a good understanding of his character. He was a vengeful person, not to mention such a great loss. It would not be in line with his personality if he did not take revenge. As Di Xiaofeng's voice fell, a trace of seriousness appeared on the faces of Lin Taxing and the others. Indeed, they had to deal with this properly. Di Beichen was also aware of this point. His gaze swept across Chu Yingming and the others who were not far away. The influence of these four families is not small. Apart from the Jun family, which has a small number of people, the other three families also have a large number of people. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Our side only has our 3 families working together. I'm afraid we're lacking in numbers. Although they had obtained quite a number of placements through the alchemy competition, the number of cultivators who were qualified to enter the immortal cloud mystic realm was limited. Therefore, quite a number of placements had been auctioned off. Now that the cultivators of the 3 clans were added together, they naturally couldn't win against the other party. Once a battle broke out, they would be at a disadvantage. Dibaichen narrowed his eyes. As long as we control the leader, we still have a chance. Hearing Dibaichen's words, everyone immediately understood what he meant. As long as Chu Yingming and the others were under control, their family disciples would naturally not attack again. It's useless to think so much now. If they've made up their minds to attack, we'll fight to the end. Lin Taxing's eyes sparkled with excitement. In fact, he should have taken action long ago. Now that there was a chance to fight, it was not bad. That's right. At worst, we'll just have to fight. We don't know the final result yet. Morongjing also spoke up. I think that Jun Lingxuan has been unhappy for a long time. Chapter 50-24. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, everyone's eyes narrowed. Indeed, just as he said, the other 4 families had indeed formed an alliance. However, it was only because of the environment. They did not have deep feelings for each other. Once the other side was defeated, perhaps some of them would retreat. After all, their previous alliance was also so weak. After what happened just now, their alliance has become more stable. Di Xiaofeng's expression darkened. Seeing the other side quickly cross the river, his gaze became even more gloomy. However, we are not afraid. The cultivators from the Di family, Lin family, and Morong family realized what was going to happen next and immediately prepared to fight. They were not afraid at all. At the same time, Chu Yingming and the others quickly appeared in front of Dibaichen's group. After seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators also felt the change in the atmosphere. They immediately understood that a great battle was unavoidable. Dibaichen, I'm sorry to let your plan fall through. Chu Yingming's gaze was ruthless and did not hide it at all. His eagle-like eyes stared at Dibaichen like a cheetah staring at its prey. He did not give the other party any chance to dodge. However, Dibaichen also did not have any thoughts of dodging. That's not necessarily true. Dibaichen's lips curled up slightly as he looked at Chu Yingming with a smile that was not a smile. His cold words were filled with pressure and dominance. The meaning was very simple. Even if you cross the river, you won't be able to survive. Chu Yingming's gaze became even more ruthless, filled with dense killing intent. If looks could kill, Dibaichen would have died thousands of times already. You're really arrogant. Chu Yingming was so angry that he laughed. He narrowed his eyes and every word was filled with dense killing intent. Don't you know that if you're too arrogant, you'll be targeted sooner or later? I've always been targeted. Dibaichen's expression was indifferent. His indifferent appearance made it seem like he was chatting about the weather. However, I'm still fine right now. When Dibaichen said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but reveal a faint smile. Indeed, from the lower realm until now, they did not know how many opponents they had encountered. However, in the end they still managed to survive unscathed. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. Until the end, no one knew who the real winner was. At least they had never feared. Dibaichen, your good luck ends today. Jun Ling's son took a step forward. The elemental energy in his body began to surge, and a surging pressure directly crushed Dibaichen. Today was the best chance for them to kill Dibaichen. He did not want to miss it. Facing Jun Lingxuan's pressure, Dibaichen waved his hand and shattered it. His deep eyes were filled with ridicule and impatience. Don't use this kind of 3-legged cat to embarrass yourself. It's a waste of time. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan's expression turned cold. Without hesitation, he charged towards Dibaichen. You're courting death. Bang! 2 fists collided. An astonishing energy burst out. The 2 of them were originally enemies. The grudge between the 2 families had been going on for a long time. Therefore, when they fought, neither of them held back at all. The scattered energy overflowed. The air was directly cut in half and a spatial crack appeared. However, after the exchange, Jun Lingxuan's eyes narrowed and revealed a trace of surprise. Chapter 50-25. According to their judgment, Di Beichen came from the lower realms, so his strength was definitely not on par with theirs. However, he had attacked with the intention of killing Di Beichen and didn't hold back at all. He didn't expect that Di Beichen would be able to take his punch. From the strength of his punch, he could clearly feel that Di Beichen had also reached the nebula realm. This discovery shocked him greatly. No matter how he looked at it, Di Beichen, who came from the lower realms, couldn't possibly be on par with them. One had to know that his cultivation was considered outstanding among the cultivators who had entered the immortal cloud's secret realm. How could Di Beichen be on the same level as him? The cultivation resources of the lower realms couldn't be compared to the upper realms. When Jun Lingxuan attacked, Nangong Yuqing's eyes secretly revealed a trace of ridicule. Previously, everyone felt that it was strange that he didn't want to continue fighting with Di Beichen, which made him lose face. Now that there was someone like him, he was naturally happy to see it. Sure enough, he soon saw Jun Lingxuan's complicated expression. The surrounding cultivators also wanted to know Di Beichen's strength. They all had some understanding of Jun Lingxuan. After all, over the years, Jun Lingxuan could be seen at any place where the younger generation went to train. Even if they hadn't seen him for a period of time, they could still roughly judge Jun Lingxuan's strength. Jun Lingxuan didn't hide the shock and astonishment on his face, so everyone could see it clearly. Immediately, they had a direct understanding of Di Beichen's strength. It seems that Di Beichen's cultivation has also reached the nebula realm. Otherwise, Jun Lingxuan wouldn't have such an expression. It's really hard to imagine. Didn't they say that he came from the lower realms? Could it be a cover? Maybe Di Beichen has been with the Di family all these years, and is just a secret weapon that the Di family has been secretly cultivating. It can't be, right? There's no need for the Di family to act so well. Everyone looked at each other, but they couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. Whether it was Di Beichen or Bailey Hongzhuang, they did not seem to be from the lower realms at all. Of course, no one was willing to accept this answer, because that would only show how much of a failure they were. Di Beichen looked at Jun Lingxuan with an indifferent expression. His lips curled into a mocking smile as he said, "I'm afraid that's not enough for you to kill me." Jun Lingxuan's face was ashen, but he didn't get angry. Di Beichen, don't be complacent too early. When the real battle starts, it's not certain who will win. I will use my combat strength to tell you that if you don't have enough foundation, then your cultivation won't be enough. Di Beichen, this is the trouble you brought to your family. Use your death to pay for it. Chu Yingming's cold voice was filled with endless sharp killing intent. When he thought about how his jade toad had actually fallen because of this matter, he was filled with anger. He wished that he could tear everyone from the Di family into pieces. However, at this moment, Chun Feng walked to Di Beichen's side. Seeing Chun Feng's appearance, a trace of astonishment flashed in Chu Yingming's eyes before they became gloomy again. Chun Feng, could it be that your great devil sect wants to help the Di family? Everyone's gaze landed on Chun Feng. All along, Chun Feng had never helped anyone in a battle. That was because he had always been indifferent. As long as no one provoked him, he wouldn't care. Chapter 50-26. The Great Devil Sect was an extremely powerful existence among all the other sections. As the eldest disciple of the Great Devil Sect, Chun Feng's strength was needless to say. Originally, the Di family and the others were at a disadvantage. However, once the Great Devil Sect decided to join, this disadvantage would become an advantage. Everyone looked at each other, wondering if Chun Feng would do this. However, facing Chu Yingming's question, Chun Feng shook his head. The Great Devil Sect will not join. As soon as he said this, Chu Yingming and the others breathed a sigh of relief as a smile appeared on their lips. However, before their smiles could fully blossom, Chun Feng's words rang out once again. However, I will join. Jun Lingxuan and the others were stunned as they looked at Chun Feng in disbelief. However, they immediately understood what he meant. This matter was a grudge between them and the Di family. It had nothing to do with the Great Devil Sect. Therefore, the disciples of the Great Devil Sect would not participate. However, Chun Feng's choice to help Di Beichen was his personal decision, and had nothing to do with the Great Devil Sect. This meant that the only reason he was standing here was because of Chun Feng. When Di Beichen and the others heard Chun Feng's words, a trace of appreciation and a smile appeared in their eyes. At least they did not misjudge Chun Feng. Chu Yingming lowered his voice as he looked at Chun Feng. Chun Feng, are you determined to be my enemy? Chun Feng, on the other hand, had a calm expression. Am I not clear enough? Perhaps Chu Yingming's threat would be effective against others. However, it was meaningless against Chun Feng. Xiao Shou and the others looked at each other. Although it was only Chun Feng, they were clear on how strong he was. He would be able to affect the outcome of this battle. Then you can die together with me. Chu Yingming's eyes were blood red. He, who was engulfed in anger, had a feeling that he would kill anyone who stood in his way. No matter who dared to stop him at this time, he would not hesitate to kill them. In the next instant, Chu Yingming led the Chu family's team and charged forward. At the same time, Nangong Yuqing and the others did not delay. They were clear that this was the best time to make their move. If he didn't make a move now, it would be even more difficult to make a move later. Fortunately, the other disciples of the Great Devil Sect did not join them. Even with the addition of Chun Feng, the ending might not necessarily change. Boom! An astonishing amount of elemental energy surged out from everyone's body. The tyrannical power and the boundless pressure enveloped one another, spreading a terrifying aura. The entire sky seemed to have darkened in an instant, revealing a deep sense of oppression, making it difficult for people to breathe. When the other cultivators saw that this battle was unavoidable, they all retreated a certain distance. They didn't want to be involved in it for no reason. Jun Lingxuan immediately greeted Di Beichen. In the past, he had always regarded Di Beichen as a thorn in his side, but ever since Di Beichen appeared, the person he hated became Di Beichen. Today he would kill Di Beichen with his own hands. Seeing Jun Lingxuan rushing over, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a cold light. The other party's actions were exactly what he wanted. For a moment, the cultivators from both sides collided. The scope of the battle was extremely large. Once they met their opponents, they showed no mercy. After all, both sides were enemies. As a woman, Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent should have been Xiao Shou. However, Xiao Shou was clearly still fearful of what had happened last time. Chapter 50-27. Lin Qianqian and the rest were surprised when they saw that Xiao Shou was hiding from Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they quickly understood what was going on. They had previously heard from Di Beichen that Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan were unable to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang even after joining forces. They initially thought that it was a joke. However, judging from Xiao Shou's performance, they could tell that it was not a joke. It was real. I never thought that Xiao Shou would hide from Hongzhuang. This is interesting. Lin Qianqian chuckled. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of Xiao Shou. Seeing Lin Qianqian's appearance, Xiao Shou's eyes flashed with a strange look. However, she did not intend to escape. Xiao Shou, life is really strange. I've always disliked you. I never thought that my wish would come true and we would become opponents. Lin Qianqian's expression was cold. Her words were tit for tat and she did not show any mercy. Lin Qianqian, I was indeed slightly inferior to you the last time we fought. However, you don't have to be too proud because of that. Every dog has its day. You may not be my opponent now. Xiao Shou's black eyes flashed with a cold light. Ever since she was slightly inferior to Lin Qianqian, she felt an inexplicable sense of superiority in front of her. This made her very unhappy. Lin Qianqian was a disgrace to her existence. Today she was going to kill Lin Qianqian with her own hands. Try me then. In the next moment, the two of them used all their moves and collided with each other. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to find an opponent, a woman from the Nangong family targeted her and launched a sneak attack when she was unprepared. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had always been extremely sensitive to danger. Even though she had taken the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, she did not succeed. Her extremely sharp eyes emitted a shocking killing intent. The other party's sneak attack had obviously angered Bailey Hongzhuang. Her eyes were burning as she held the thought-severing sword and attacked directly. When the woman saw Bailey Hongzhuang's emotionless eyes, she couldn't help but be startled. A feeling of fear arose in her heart for no reason. However, she quickly calmed down. She had chosen Bailey Hongzhuang as her opponent because Bailey Hongzhuang had attracted a lot of attention. As long as she could kill Bailey Hongzhuang, she would definitely attract more attention. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang came from the lower realms and was also an alchemist. Her cultivation was naturally incomparable to theirs. Stepping on her to get to the top was undoubtedly the best option. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang made her move, she realized that she had been too naive. That was because Bailey Hongzhuang's combat power was similarly astonishing. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were as fast as lightning. Her figure flashed like a whirlwind, and before she could even see clearly what had happened, she felt a chill on her neck. Immediately after, a warm feeling gushed out from her neck. Bailey Hongzhuang was merciless. Being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. If these people were allowed to live, they would only bring endless trouble to them. When everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang kill one of them, their eyes lit up. Immediately, they felt greatly encouraged and their attacks became even more ferocious. Di Xiaofeng faced Chu Yingming without any surprise. As for Chun Feng, he faced Nangong Yuqing. Chapter 50-28. Unfortunately, his opponent was Chun Feng. Years ago, he had lost to Chun Feng in a competition. Over the years, everyone had tacitly agreed that Chun Feng was the number one and he was the number two. Normally, it was fine for him to have such thoughts. However, at this time, Chun Feng had taken the initiative to come knocking on his door. This was simply infuriating him to death. Chun Feng was obviously unaware of Di Beichen's thoughts. In his opinion, since he was going to help the Di family, he naturally had to delay their experts. This way, the situation of Di Beichen and the others would be alleviated. Among all the participants, the battle between Jun Lingxuan and Di Beichen was the fiercest. It could be said that when enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Di Beichen did not mind wandering outside all these years. After all, if it were not for this experience, he would not have met Bailey Hongzhuang. However, when he thought about how his family had been heartbroken for so many years due to the despicable methods of the Jun family and the estrangement between his parents, one could imagine the anger in his heart. More importantly, this damnable guy had actually joined hands with an evil cultivator and almost took Hongzhuang's life. This was something he could not tolerate. Jun Lingxuan was also full of energy. After being suppressed all this time, he had long wanted to vent his anger. As long as he could kill Di Beichen today, all the resentment from before would be instantly restored. Di Beichen, you will definitely die by my hands today. Jun Lingxuan's sharp sword stabbed out violently. Every move was ruthless, aiming for a fatal spot. Di Beichen held the severed emotion sword in his hand. Facing the attacks from all directions, he was still as calm as ever, as smooth as flowing water. My wife already taught you a lesson last time. Seems like your memory is not very good? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. His cold voice was filled with ridicule and sarcasm, but the depths of his eyes were as cold as winter. Jun Lingxuan's expression turned ugly when he heard this. Thinking back to how they were defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang even after joining forces, it was really embarrassing. If possible, he only hoped that no one would mention it again. Di Beichen, don't be too proud. I admit that Bailey Hongzhuang's methods are not bad, but you're just a freeloader. Speaking of which, can you really beat Bailey Hongzhuang? Jun Lingxuan sneered mercilessly. After understanding Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, he knew that Di Beichen was no match for Bailey Hongzhuang. Living off a woman? Di Beichen chuckled. Are you talking about yourself? You've been relying on Xiao Sou all this time, and you're shamelessly enjoying it. Di Beichen. Jun Lingxuan's face turned stiff. To him, he obviously could not accept being called a freeloader. In the next moment, Di Beichen's figure flashed. His movements were as fast as lightning and his fist, which was mixed with boundless strength, fiercely smashed into Jun Lingxuan's body. Bam! In the blink of an eye, Jun Lingxuan was sent flying and fell to the ground. That tyrannical force made Jun Lingxuan clutch his chest. He felt as if his internal organs had been displaced by this punch, bringing with it an unbearable pain. Hoochie! Jun Lingxuan spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared blankly at Di Beichen with horror and shock. Di Beichen's gaze was cold and emotionless, but his voice was proud and domineering. I'm different from you. Chapter 50-29. When they fought before, he clearly felt that Di Beichen was on par with him, but in a short moment, Di Beichen's cultivation suddenly increased. It was because of this that he was caught off guard and injured. However, at this time what he was most concerned about was not how serious his injuries were, but how Di Beichen could suddenly increase his strength. Faced with Jun Lingxuan's inquiry, Di Beichen was too lazy to answer. The next moment, his figure turned into a ray of light, and the severed passion sword in his hand reflected a cold and bloodthirsty light. Without hesitation, he stabbed towards Jun Lingxuan. Seeing the sharp sword rapidly stabbing towards him, Jun Lingxuan's pupils shrank, and the shadow of death once again shrouded him. He immediately wanted to turn around and dodge, but Di Beichen's speed was simply too fast. Ding! At this time, a figure appeared in front of Jun Lingxuan. Chu Yingming blocked Di Beichen's attack, then glanced at Jun Lingxuan and said, "You go over there, leave this to me." Seeing the sullen face of Chu Yingming, Jun Lingxuan quietly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stood up. Thank you. If Chu Yingming was a bit slower, even if he didn't die, he would definitely be seriously injured. Most importantly, once he was seriously injured in this situation, it would be even more difficult to leave alive. Di Beichen coldly looked at Chu Yingming, who suddenly appeared. If not for this guy's sudden appearance, Jun Lingxuan would have already become a ghost under his sword. Di Beichen, I really underestimated you. Chu Yingming stared at Di Beichen, his deep, dark eyes sizing him up with suspicion. Actually, you don't stay in the lower realm, right? Yes or no, what does it have to do with you? Di Beichen's face was cold, but his hand that was holding the severed passion sword quietly tightened. His ink-black eyes were filled with bloodlust and killing intent. In the next moment, he pointed his sword at Chu Yingming. Since Jun Lingxuan has left, then you shall die for him. The resolute voice was filled with killing intent and cold-bloodedness. The sunlight shone on the white figure standing there, making him look like a god of war, tyrannical and insufferably arrogant. Facing Di Beichen's cold eyes, Chu Yingming felt a strange feeling in his heart. However, he quickly recovered. Thinking that he had been suppressed by Di Beichen's aura, he immediately felt unhappy. What a joke! Even if it was Chun Feng, it was still impossible for him to fear him. Di Beichen, I'll send you to hell first. Chu Yingming's eyes darkened as he raised his palm. Boundless and surging elemental energy unreservedly swept out from his body. He stomped on the ground and his body tore through the air. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Di Beichen. At the same time, a ferocious fist blasted through the air and mercilessly attacked Di Beichen's face with an astonishing pressure. The ferocious fist enlarged in front of Di Beichen's eyes. However, his calm and cold face showed no fear. Just as everyone was sure that Di Beichen would dodge, they found that he had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, he met the fist head-on. Don't look at how Chu Yingming usually hides his strength. In fact, he is very strong. Based on my judgment, he is probably not any weaker than Nangong Yuqing. That's right. Chu Yingming has always been hiding his strength deeply. Coupled with the fact that he usually doesn't make any moves, we can't figure out his specific cultivation level. Chapter 50-30. The spectating cultivators were all paying close attention to the situation of the battle. Understanding the strength of their opponent was also beneficial to them. Usually everyone would conceal their strength, but obviously in this kind of battle there would be no concealment. They could directly understand each other's strength. Bang! Di Beichen's fist fiercely met the attack. Tyrannical energy exploded. However, before the crowd could see clearly who was stronger, the two had already turned into a whirlwind and started fighting. The speed of the two was so fast that the crowd couldn't see their movements clearly. They could only see that countless fierce energy waves were spreading in all directions, bringing with them an incomparably tyrannical aura. From the looks of it, Chu Yingming's strength has probably reached Nebula rank 2. I really didn't expect him to be so good at hiding. It's really scary to imagine. If it wasn't for the fact that his jade toad was destroyed this time, then with the jade toad and his strength, he would be the undisputed number one. It wasn't known who said this, but the crowd's expression suddenly changed. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed so. Bang! Under the two's crazy attacks, a huge circular hole suddenly appeared. Di Beichen and Chu Yingming also separated. Only then did the crowd clearly see the situation of the two. However, the two's faces didn't seem to have any changes. The crowd couldn't tell who had the upper hand. Chu Yingming was shocked. All along, he didn't put Jun Lingxuan in his eyes. The Jun family had been suppressed by the Di family all these years. Naturally, there was a certain gap between them and his Chu family. Therefore, when he saw that Jun Lingxuan couldn't beat Di Beichen, he didn't find it strange. It wasn't until he fought with Di Beichen that he understood that Di Beichen's strength was really strong. I have to say, if I knew your strength before, I wouldn't have chosen to be your enemy. Chu Yingming's eyes rippled with a sinister and complicated light. He had always been a person who valued benefits. If the opponent's strength was extremely strong, he wouldn't choose to offend such an opponent. It would only bring him endless trouble. However, since I've already offended you, I can only strangle you in the cradle. Same here. Di Beichen's expression was calm. He knew that Chu Yingming was a character. If the other party had not taken the initiative to find trouble, he would not have gone to find trouble with the other party. However, since they were already enemies, the only thing he could do was to make sure the other party no longer had the possibility of threatening him. Seeing Di Beichen remain neither servile nor overbearing, Chu Yingming's gaze became increasingly gloomy. The calmer the other party was, the more he felt that the other party had a trump card. Logically speaking, most people would at least have some ripples in their hearts at this moment, but Di Beichen didn't, not at all. In front of everyone's eyes, Chu Yingming's elemental energy was dyed with the color of flames. A fire attribute light burst out. For a moment, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose, and the air became boiling hot. Di Beichen's expression changed. He also understood that Chu Yingming was of the fire attribute. After Chu Yingming used his fire attribute power, balls of flames appeared between his hands. As he used his martial skills, their might became more and more terrifying. Roar! Following Chu Yingming's hand seals, a huge flaming lion appeared out of thin air. Its fur was burning with flames, and its appearance was vivid and lifelike, as if it was alive. Chapter 50-31. Looking at the sudden appearance of the flaming lion, Di Beichen's eyes also showed a trace of seriousness. In the next moment, a trace of bloody smell quietly appeared, mixed with endless killing intent, erupted with Di Beichen as the center. The dense killing intent and shocking bloody smell made people's hearts tremble for no reason. The Di Beichen in front of them also became undefeatable. Immediately after, everyone noticed that Di Beichen's aura suddenly increased, from Nebula Level 1 to Nebula Level 3. After feeling that tyrannical aura that really did exist, everyone was dumbfounded. They looked at each other and wondered if they had seen wrongly. Am I seeing things? How could Di Beichen's aura suddenly increase? I heard that there are some secret techniques that can help practitioners increase their strength in a short period of time, but usually there are very serious repercussions. Could it be that Di Beichen is using this method? It's not a matter of life and death. Di Beichen shouldn't use this method. Everyone looked at each other, one after another ideas appeared in their minds, but they were all rejected by them in the end. This kind of method was really unfamiliar to them. Most importantly, they had never heard of the Di family having such a method. After Di Beichen displayed his aura, Chu Yingming felt a pressure enveloping him, making him unable to fully display his strength. This discovery made him extremely shocked. At his level of cultivation, there was still someone who could use aura to suppress him. This was a bit too terrifying. However, after he reacted, he was more envious. As long as he killed Di Beichen and obtained this secret technique, his battle strength would increase by another level. Without a doubt, this was the best reward. After Di Beichen increased his aura, he didn't use any attribute power, and still used his spirit energy to deal with the enemy. Facing the huge flaming lion, Di Beichen seemed very small, but he was not afraid in the face of danger. Bang bang bang. At the same time, Di Beichen stomped his foot on the flaming lion's head, and then he stabbed out with the severed passion sword and obliterated the flaming lion. Seeing this, Chu Yingming's heart trembled. Di Beichen was already so powerful without using his elemental power. If he were to use his elemental power, Chu Yingming would likely not be a match for him. At the same time, some of the cultivators present were experienced and knowledgeable. After repeated analysis, they determined the source of Di Beichen's aura. Could this be an abyssal inheritance? One of the cultivators stared at Di Beichen in a daze, his face filled with amazement. As soon as this was said, everyone couldn't help but think of the two great abysses in the lower realms. Could it be the blood chi field and the killing chi field? According to the records, this situation is exactly the same as Di Beichen's, and Di Beichen also came from the lower realm. That's right, it's really like that. In that case, Di Beichen really is a genius. This kind of inheritance isn't something that can be obtained so easily. For a moment, the way everyone looked at Di Beichen changed. They were filled with emotion, surprise, and a trace of envy and admiration. Chu Yingming also heard the conversation of the crowd, and his gaze became complicated. You used an abyssal inheritance? Chapter 50-32. That's right. Di Beichen didn't try to hide it. Anyone who understood this kind of inheritance would be able to tell. After receiving an affirmative answer, Chu Yingming's expression became somewhat awkward. He had previously vowed that Di Beichen was secretly nurtured by the Di family, but the characteristics of the two abyss made him understand that this was simply impossible. However, Di Beichen came from the lower realm, yet he was still able to reach such a cultivation level. This was truly a little too terrifying. At the very least, his potential far exceeded that of most of the people present. After Jun Lingxuan saved his life from Di Beichen, he turned to attack Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue's death was also somewhat related to Mo Yunjue. At present, he couldn't personally kill Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as he could kill Mo Yunjue, it could be considered as collecting some interest to comfort Di Beichen's soul in heaven. When Mo Yunjue saw that Jun Lingxuan actually treated him as an easy target, a trace of coldness and bloodlust quietly flashed through his deep, black hole-like eyes. Recalling how Bailey Hongzhuang had almost died under Jun Lingxuan's scheme, the killing intent in his heart continued to swell. Ever since he came to the upper realm, his mentality had become much calmer. However, when he was in the lower realm, he lived in a killing field. Originally, there were too many people who wanted to deal with Jun Lingxuan, so it was impossible for them to fall into his hands in a short time. However, he didn't expect that Jun Lingxuan would actually take the initiative to find him. This was exactly what he wanted. Jun Lingxuan looked at Mo Yunjue in front of him, and a complacent and sinister smile appeared on his lips. You're called Mo Yunjue, right? You also had a part to play in Di Beichen's death. Today, I'll send you to the underworld to apologize to Di Beichen. Jun Lingxuan was very confident. In his opinion, Mo Yunjue was just a cultivator from the lower realm. Although he had displayed considerable strength in the battle with Xiao Sou, there was still an insurmountable gap between them. However, in the face of Jun Lingxuan's arrogant appearance, Mo Yunjue's response was his fist. You talk too much. His chiseled face was unusually cold, and there was a trace of impatience in the depths of his eyes. To him, if he could use his hands to do so. Jun Lingxuan didn't expect that Mo so directly. He was caught off guard and was to the point to his nose to be to his face was to be caught unprepared. He covered his nose as blood continued to flow from the gaps between his fingers. He looked very pathetic. He looked at Mo Yunjue and wanted to say, why didn't you follow the rules? However, Mo Yunjue didn't give him any time to hesitate and attacked again. Fuck. Jun Lingxuan couldn't help but curse, I can't beat Di Beichen, but you think I can't beat you? You're from the lower realm, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Then you can try. Mo Yunjue's expression was ice cold, but his attacks were even more ferocious. However, after this exchange, Jun Lingxuan realized that Mo Yunjue was also an extremely powerful existence. This was because he felt a terrifying murderous aura enveloping him. The aura that Mo Yunjue emitted was like that of the god of death from hell, causing people's hearts to tremble unconsciously. Under the influence of this murderous aura, his performance was also affected. How was this possible? Jun Lingxuan was dumbfounded. Why were the methods of this fellow from the lower realm so strange? Chapter 50-33. Not only that, after Mo Yunjue had unleashed his murderous aura, Bailey Hongzhuang had also unleashed her murderous aura and blood aura. Instantly gasps were heard. Everyone at the scene was dumbfounded. Wasn't the Abyss inheritance supposed to be very difficult? How could there be 3 of them at once? Everyone looked at each other and secretly decided to check the information carefully when they returned. Perhaps they had made a mistake. Lin Taxing and the others looked at the power displayed by Bailey Hongzhuang, and the other 2 and sighed with joy. Previously, they had only heard about it from Mo Yunjue. Now that they had seen the 3 of them display it, they finally understood how powerful the Abyss inheritance was. Initially, Di Xiaofeng was very worried that Di Beichen would be in danger when faced with Chu Yingming's attack. He never thought that Di Beichen would be able to stabilize the situation. After discovering this, he did not continue to deal with Chu Yingming. At a time like this, it was undoubtedly the best time for Di Beichen to make a name for himself. A faint smell of blood spread through the air. In this fiery battle, cultivators would be injured or even killed from time to time. Even so, both sides had no intention of stopping. To them, this was a situation where they would not rest until one of them was dead. Unless one side was completely annihilated, they would not stop. The situation gradually turned from fiery to tragic. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly rang out. Look, what's that? In their line of sight, a monstrous beast had appeared not too far away. Its fierce eyes were locked onto them as if it would attack at any time. Hearing this person's cry of surprise, everyone was stunned at first. However, when they saw that it was only a monstrous beast, they could not help but roll their eyes. It's only a monstrous beast. You don't have to be so nervous. But we've never encountered a monstrous beast, ever since we came to the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. What's the big deal about not encountering one? It's only a monstrous beast. How powerful can it be? Everyone shook their heads and felt that they were making a fuss over nothing. However, soon after, everyone could no longer maintain their indifferent look. This was because a series of beast roars rang out not too far away. Roar! Oh woo! The roars of the demonic beasts were intertwined and continuous, causing one's heart to tremble. When Di Beichen and the others noticed this, they couldn't help but slow down their movements as they turned their gazes to the front. What's going on? Why did so many demonic beasts suddenly appear? Xiren frowned and looked around cautiously. His intuition told him that the situation was not simple. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other, their expressions heavy. Long ago, they had already realized that everything here was a test. Therefore, they did not relax even after passing through the School of Fish, because they knew that they would only encounter more tests. It was just that they didn't expect the test to come so quickly. They didn't even have time to deal with their opponents. Master, there are many demonic beasts coming. Baisher's voice was filled with caution and seriousness. And these demonic beasts are not simple. Hearing Baisher's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. As the Beast King, Baisher had the best understanding of demonic beasts. Chapter 50-34. As the voice fell, everyone realized that there was a large group of demonic beasts surrounding the area. Previously, their line of sight was blocked by the trees. In addition, the battle between Di Beichen and the others was too big, attracting all their attention. They didn't even have time to pay attention to their surroundings. Even though there was a cultivator's warning, they only noticed the demonic beast at the front. They didn't notice the other demonic beasts under the cover of the trees. Is that a single horn-spotted leopard? Not only is there a single horn-spotted leopard, there's also a green demon beast. There are many different types of demonic beasts. Why did so many demonic beasts suddenly appear? Could it be that all the demonic beasts have gathered here? Then what do we do now? Everyone's faces gradually turned pale. Looking at the demonic beasts that were getting closer and closer to them, they couldn't help but want to retreat. However, the school of piranhas behind them were also eyeing them covetously. If they retreated, they would end up in the belly of the piranhas. When Di-Bei-Chen and the others saw this situation, they stopped moving. Although the grudge between them was important, facing so many demonic beasts, even if one side won, it was very likely that they would end up as food in the stomach of these demonic beasts. Seeing this, Di-Bei-Chen and Chu Yingming looked at each other and made a decision. Let's put aside today's matter for now. After we deal with these demonic beasts, we'll fight again. Chu Yingming's eyes were fierce. The more he discovered how outstanding Di-Bei-Chen was, the stronger his killing intent became. No matter what, he wanted to make Di-Bei-Chen stay in the Immortal Cloud secret realm forever. Otherwise, once he left, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Okay. Di-Bei-Chen's expression was cold. He didn't speak ruthlessly like Chu Yingming, but his cold eyes showed his attitude. When it came to fighting, he was never afraid. Jun Lingxuan's expression was very ugly. Originally, this was an excellent opportunity for him because he could get the biggest benefits with the smallest cost. Because, in this group, the Jun family's cultivators were undoubtedly the least. On the other hand, the Di family and the Lin family had quite a number of cultivators. This was equivalent to borrowing the hands of the Chu clan, Nangong clan, and Shao clan's disciples to help his clan get rid of a huge threat. As long as he didn't die, no matter what, this was a good deal. Even if all the members of the family had died, there were still others in the family. However, the Di family and the Lin family were different. They were the mainstays of the family. Once all these people died here, they would have the upper hand. However, he didn't expect that something like this would happen in the middle of the battle, causing him to be unable to continue the battle. One could imagine how depressed he was. Ling Sun, what should we do? Xiao Suo looked at the group of demonic beasts that were eyeing them covetously. Her palm-sized face was pale and nervous. This feeling was even more panicky than when she was facing a school of fish. Once he fell into the mouth of this demonic beast, he would similarly be reduced to ashes. Jun Lingxuan patted Xiao Suo's shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry, there are so many of us. We will definitely think of a way. Xiao Suo nodded slightly, but her nervous expression betrayed her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also sizing up the situation in front of them. At a glance, they could see a black mass of demonic beasts. Chapter 50-35. Xiao Hei's lips twitched slightly. Previously, it had thought that the training in the upper realm was easier than the lower realm. They only needed to worry about whether there would be opponents and did not need to worry about other dangers. However, it now seemed that it had been too naive. It was not that there was no danger. All the dangers were gathered together. In comparison, it still preferred the training in the lower realm because the training in front of it was really testing its heart's endurance. I understand too. Xiaobai could not help but speak up. It was also feeling helpless. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her hand and patted the two little fellows' heads. Although the situation in front of them was full of danger, it did not cause her to panic completely. She believed that since Xiao Hei and Xiaobai's master had set up such a test, there was a possibility of success. Otherwise, this test would be meaningless. However, it would not be easy to pass this test. As the demonic beasts gradually approached, the crowd could not help but retreat. They only stopped when they reached the riverbank. At the same time, the group clearly understood the terrifying number of monsters. This was because they could not see the end of it. What should we do now? There are so many monsters. If we want to rush over, we can't do it even if all of us attack together. The single-horned spotted leopard and the green demon beast. Their combat power is not simple. With our current number of people, we are completely at a disadvantage against them. There's nothing we can do. We have no way out. The group could not help but want to cry. They had never encountered such a hopeless situation in their previous training. Ever since they had been chased by the locusts, they had felt more and more hopeless each time. In the past, they only hoped to stay in the Immortal Cloud Mystery Realm for a while longer. Now their biggest wish was to leave this place. The Immortal Cloud Mystery Realm was now a nightmarish existence in their eyes. Even if they managed to survive today, no one knew what would happen tomorrow. This situation is really too tricky. Di Xiaofeng frowned. Once these monsters attack, we can hold on for a short period of time. However, after a long time, our primary energy will be exhausted and our bodies will not be able to take it. Taking turns to fight is not something we can handle. Indeed, Lin Taxing's face was also very ugly. But there is no way out now. The only thing we can do is to hold on as long as we can. Don't worry, we'll find a way. Di Beichen's clear and pleasant voice sounded, blowing away the anxiety in everyone's hearts like a spring breeze. Looking at his confident face, everyone couldn't help but recall how many times they had wanted to give up, but fortunately, they had persevered in the end. There was nothing that couldn't be solved. As long as they worked hard, they might be able to come up with a solution. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and his sexy lips curved into a warm smile. Don't be afraid, we'll kill them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. At the same time, Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying immediately understood what Di Beichen meant. In fact, when they were in the oceanic world, they had also been attacked by countless monsters. Thinking back to that period of time, he was really abnormally tired. However, it had to be said that under such a torturous battle, their improvement was also very fast. Chapter 50-36. Although Ao Lingxiao and Mo Yunjue felt extremely helpless about the situation in front of them, they did not despair because of it. When they faced the skeleton army, they had also fought like this. They were no stranger to being surrounded. For a moment, they could not help but laugh. When Lin Taxing and the others saw that Di Beichen and the others could still laugh at this time, they were stunned. However, before they could ask, the monsters had already rushed over. Everyone be careful, Emperor Xiaofeng yelled. And everyone immediately entered battle mode. Countless monsters seemed to treat Bailey Hongzhuang and the others as delicious food. They rushed over in a hurry, only wanting to fill their stomachs. Various colored primary forces were unleashed, bringing with them a tyrannical and terrifying force, directly killing the monsters in front of them. The smell of blood spread in the air. When the demonic beasts saw this situation, their eyes flashed with fear for a moment. However, they were quickly defeated by hunger and attacked again. Even though this move had achieved a great effect, none of the cultivators present felt happy about it. This was because the monsters killed were insignificant to this monster horde. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the nine-tailed zither. The sound of the zither poured out from her 10 fingers, bringing with it a 7-colored primary force as it jumped on the zither strings. When everyone saw this scene, their gazes changed slightly. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang also knew the art of zither music? Immediately after, they realized that the sound waves had condensed into substance, bringing with them a tyrannical force as they attacked a large number of monsters. The pleasant sound of the zither rang out, attacking wave after wave like a tidal wave. The monsters that were rushing forward were also affected, and the monsters at the front were directly sent flying. Compared to everyone's martial skills that only attacked in one direction, Bailey Hongzhuang's zither music attack undoubtedly had a wide range. Most importantly, with the help of the zither music, the possibility of being ambushed by the monsters was greatly reduced. As everyone fought, they could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her clothes were whiter than snow, and her facial features were exquisite and elegant, as if she was a work of art carefully carved by the heavens. Just looking at her was enough to make people forget to breathe. 7-colored essence force danced between her body, and it was as beautiful as a painting. If not for the endless demonic beasts in the surroundings spoiling the atmosphere, this scene would really be pleasing to the eye. However, it was also because of the existence of these demonic beasts that this scene entered the hearts of everyone. Who would have thought that not only is Bailey Hongzhuang an alchemist, but she is also very strong. She even knows the art of the zither. The art of the zither is extremely difficult to master. However, if one is proficient in the art of the zither, one would be an extremely powerful existence. I'm really envious of Di Beichen now. He's picked up a treasure. Even though they were focused on dealing with the demonic beasts, everyone couldn't help but feel envious. Who wouldn't want such a wife? This was especially true for the guy who had previously mocked Di Beichen for picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. Now he felt that he was the one who was truly short-sighted. Bailey Hongzhuang was the real treasure. Xiao Sou's face was ashen. Hearing everyone's undisguised praise for Bailey Hongzhuang, her heart was filled with depression. She didn't know when it started, but she and Bailey Hongzhuang had been compared by everyone. Chapter 50-37. However, now that everyone was comparing her to Bailey Hongzhuang, she had long lost her initial confidence. She had failed time and time again. Everyone's one-sided attitude had caused her heart to break down. One had to know that in the past, she was the true proud daughter of heaven. No matter where she appeared, she was always sought after by everyone. Many men had spent a lot of effort just to be able to speak to her. But now, in the eyes of these people, she had become Bailey Hongzhuang's foil. Most importantly, Bailey Hongzhuang was already married, but these people's gazes were still so hot. How could she not be deeply affected? Just as everyone was amazed by Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, Bailey Hongzhuang herself was somewhat dissatisfied. Back then, when she was dealing with the skeletons, the lethality of her zither music was much stronger than now. However, she also understood that it was because these monstrous beasts were much stronger. Now the cultivators she met were all stronger than the previous one. Many of her methods had to be improved. Otherwise, she might not be able to keep up in the future. Ling Sun, do you know why Bailey Hongzhuang's origin energy is seven-colored? Xiao Sou's face was filled with doubt. In fact, she had long felt that this question was strange. It was just that she had never been able to figure out why it was like this. According to her understanding, she had never heard of such origin energy. Jun Lingshuan shook his head. He had also been attracted by Bailey Hongzhuang's performance earlier. However, after noticing the conflicted look on Xiao Sou's face, he had more or less guessed Xiao Sou's thoughts. However, he was now wholeheartedly focused on dealing with this monstrous beast. He was not in the mood to pay attention to these things. I've never heard of it either. Why don't we look through the books when we get back? I believe there will be records of it. Hearing Jun Lingshuan's words, Xiao Sou also nodded. She secretly made up her mind that when she got back, she would definitely investigate this point clearly. She wanted to figure out what was so special about Bailey Hongzhuang. In my opinion, we can't stay here forever. Why don't we move forward together? At this time, Chun Feng's voice resounded. If we continue to stay here, it means that unless we kill all these demonic beasts, we won't have a chance to leave this place. As Chun Feng finished speaking, a contemplative look flashed through everyone's eyes before they nodded their heads to express their agreement. That's right. Let's go ahead and take a look. It might be the same as those locusts from before. As long as we leave some distance, we'll be able to escape safely. That may be the case, but if we advance, our attacks will become stronger. If we can't break out in a short time, I'm afraid that the situation will be even worse if we get surrounded. Nangong Yuqing frowned. He felt that it was too dangerous. In this case, what difference does it make whether we are surrounded or not? Lin Taxing asked. It's better to move forward together and fight for a chance. Nangong Yuqing's face was livid. Lin Taxing, can you guarantee that we'll find a chance to leave this place? Nangong Yuqing, what you said is interesting. I'm only saying that it's possible. Lin Taxing's eyes were cold and his tone was filled with displeasure. Seeing that both sides were opposing each other, Chun Feng couldn't help but suggest, since everyone has different opinions, why don't we vote? Chapter 50-38. Everyone understood what Chun Feng was trying to say. At a time of life and death like this, all personal grudges should be put aside for the time being. After all, they were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers when faced with so many demonic beasts. If they continued to fight, it would only weaken their strength, and their chances of survival would be even lower. In fact, the previous battle had already caused them great losses. Both sides had suffered casualties. Even the surviving cultivators had sustained uncontrollable injuries. The amount of elemental energy they had consumed was obviously incomparable to when they were at their peak. If this continued, they would truly be finished. Soon everyone raised their hands to vote. Due to the large number of people, only the leader of each faction would vote. In the end, the majority of the cultivators chose to move forward. When Nangong Yuqing saw this, his expression turned ashen. However, he did not continue arguing. Since everyone has decided, let's try to move forward. Chun Feng had a solemn expression on his face. As an existence that might very well be the strongest here at a time like this, his words were extremely authoritative. During this process we have to be extra careful. The cultivators at the front will be in charge of attacking while the cultivators at the sides will be in charge of defense. As for the cultivators at the center, they will take this opportunity to recover their elemental energy. When the cultivators at the front can no longer hold on, it will be your turn. Chun Feng voiced his thoughts. At a time like this, he did not bother asking for their opinions. Instead, he spoke in a tone that brooked no refusal. He understood that there were a lot of experts in this group. However, at this moment he was the one with the fewest objections. If it had been anyone else, their opponents would have definitely stood out to refute him. If that had happened, the situation would have gotten even worse. Rather than that, he might as well make the decision himself and save himself some trouble. Hearing Chun Feng's order, Di Beichen and the rest did not have any objections. In fact, under such circumstances this method was undoubtedly the best choice. Only by working together would they have a chance of leaving this damnable place. Let's move out now then, Chun Feng said loudly. Those who participated in the battle earlier, stay in the center and recover your elemental energy. The rest of you spread out in the surroundings. Everyone here was a genius. After understanding what they were going to do, they quickly formed a formation and started moving forward together. Determination and nervousness filled everyone's faces. From the moment they chose to move forward, they already had no way out. If they continued to walk, they would only be surrounded. If all of them were exhausted and still couldn't break out, then they would only have a dead end. Even so, they still chose to do so. Because at least this way there was still a glimmer of hope, even if it was equally slim. Bailey Hongzhuang walked in the middle of the group and put away her nine-tailed zither. She understood the deeper meaning behind Chun Feng's arrangement. She had to recover her elemental energy as soon as possible. Xiao So was standing not far away from Bailey Hongzhuang. She clearly wished that Bailey Hongzhuang would die as soon as possible, yet she was forced to join forces at this time. One could imagine the displeasure in her heart. As the cultivators in front released their martial skills one after another, the speed at which they advanced was also very fast. After all, they were all cultivators at the Starlight Realm and above, so their martial techniques were naturally powerful. Chapter 50-39. Facing such a situation, everyone felt very helpless. If they could, they would rather conserve their elemental energy. However, the horn-spotted leopards were extremely fast. If they were not careful, they would pounce on them. Once the horn-spotted leopards got close to them, their necks might be bitten off. With so many horn-spotted leopards staring at them, no one was willing to take such a risk. Rather than that, they would rather spend more elemental energy. At least they could preserve their lives for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang held the spirit stones with both hands and activated the demon summoning scripture. She continuously absorbed the elemental energy in the spirit stones for her own use. For this trip to the Immortal Cloud Secret Realm, the family had prepared quite a number of spirit stones for them. Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear about the power of the demon summoning scripture that she cultivated. As her cultivation level increased, the demon summoning scripture was no longer limited to meditation. She could do it even when she was walking. This was the power of a taboo cultivation technique. Because it was too powerful, it was called a taboo cultivation technique. However, other cultivators needed elixirs to recover their elemental energy. This made everyone feel very helpless. Although Di Beichen's situation was different from Bailey Hongzhuang's, the effects were quite similar. The heavenly mandate body was the most suitable body for cultivation. This was why it was so powerful. Ever since Di Beichen's body changed, his cultivation speed was different from before. The reason why he was able to break through to the Nebula Realm so quickly was not only because of the Di family's cultivation room, but also because of his heavenly mandate body. During the process of walking, Debachan could also use his heavenly mandate body to absorb the elemental energy in the air. Everyone was moving forward at their fastest speed. Only in this way could they see hope. Once they slowed down, they did not know when they would be able to pass through this group of demonic beasts. When the demonic beasts saw that the group had started to move, the covetous look in their eyes became even more intense. Instantly, their attacks became even more violent. I suddenly remembered the time when we were facing the skeleton army. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes were filled with emotions. She turned to look at Debachan. Back then, they had encountered such a situation because they had mistakenly entered the training grounds. At that time it was also extremely thrilling. Fortunately, they were safe in the end. Hearing this, Debachan also recalled that scene. He smiled and said, "It's a pity that it's not an army of skeletons in front of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to worry so much." Ever since they started cultivating the power of darkness, they were no longer afraid of the skeleton army. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. However, even if it is a demonic beast in front of us, we will definitely be safe. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and melodious voice was filled with confidence and determination. No matter how desperate the situation was, she was still full of confidence. It wasn't just them. Xiren and the others weren't too flustered either. After all, they had already experienced many similar situations. When the crowd noticed the calm expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they felt a little strange. Even they were unable to remain calm. It was too strange for these people from the lower realm to be so calm. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to the cultivators in her team. In the previous battle, everyone had been injured. Some of them were even seriously injured. Taking the medicinal pills did have a certain effect. However, the medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang had concocted was also very effective. Chapter 50-40. Regardless of whether it was the D family or the Lin family cultivators, they all knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were outstanding and were full of confidence in her. Therefore, after receiving the medicine, they consumed it without hesitation. Murongjing's eyes were filled with astonishment. He suddenly felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was like the D family's treasure bag. No matter what it was always in her hands. It was the same for the pills that they had used to recover their elemental energy. Now it was the same for this medicine. Could it be that they had assumed that Bailey Hongzhuang was a woman and that most people would not attack her, so they had placed everything on her? Even though his heart was filled with doubts, Murongjing did not ask any questions. Instead, he accepted the medicine with gratitude. After all, this was not a good time to ask questions. The waves of martial techniques continued to spread and the air was filled with all kinds of elemental energy. As the number of demonic beasts increased, the stench of blood became more and more intense. This bloody scene did not deter the demonic beasts. On the contrary, it stimulated their bloodlust, causing their attacks to become more and more violent. During this process, there were also some cultivators who were careless and were attacked. In the blink of an eye, they lost their lives. This caused the crowd to sigh. However, in the face of danger at any time, they did not even have the time to mourn the dead. They had to be on guard against danger at all times. Under such a ferocious attack, although the crowd speed was fast, the speed at which people were replaced was also fast. Not long after, a new batch of people had been replaced. In addition to the large size of the formation, there were many cultivators in charge of defending against the attacks. However, the corresponding recovery of elemental energy was slower. Previously, when they were avoiding the locusts, they only needed to run. The consumption of elemental energy was not as fast as now. Now, it was the rapid consumption of elemental energy. However, during this process, the crowd was shocked to discover something. This discovery made everyone feel a burst of joy. Did you notice that after killing these demonic beasts, a pure energy entered our bodies? A cultivator exclaimed in surprise. His pale and tired face revealed a hint of surprise. As soon as the cultivator finished speaking, everyone was slightly taken aback at first, but they quickly realized the existence of this point. That's right, it seems to be the case. Previously, I was so focused on the battle that I didn't notice this situation. Now that I think about it carefully, it really is like this. Not bad. Everyone looked at each other. This was the only good news among the countless bad news. Every one of them hoped to improve their cultivation. For a moment, the cultivators who were in charge of blocking the demonic beasts stopped complaining. After all, they could only reap the rewards by taking action. Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised when she heard the news. She didn't expect the demonic beast to have such a characteristic. It was really surprising. Perhaps this is the reward for the test. Di Beichen smiled faintly. If he wasn't sure that this was a test before, he was now completely convinced. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. As long as everyone can persevere, there are many benefits to hunting demonic beasts. Not long after, it was Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' turn to defend. Chun Feng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen worriedly. Both of you haven't recovered for long. Can you withstand it? Chapter 50-41. Di Beichen and the rest had already exhausted a lot of their energy. Adding on the fact that they did not have much time to recover, they would not be able to hold on for long. On the other hand, Jun Lingxuan and the rest were still standing in the center of the group. Obviously, they were waiting for Di Beichen and the rest to make a move before they would appear. Looking at Chun Feng's worried expression, Di Beichen waved his hand with a smile and said, "Don't worry, we're fine." Chun Feng sighed helplessly. Under such circumstances, he had no other choice. Be careful. If you can't hold on, change people. At this moment, Chu Yingming's voice sounded. We've already advanced quite a distance, but we've exhausted a lot of our energy. During this journey, we can only rely on pills to recover. After what happened earlier, we don't have many pills left. Since hunting demonic beasts can recover our energy, in my opinion, why don't we stay here for a while and let everyone recover their energy before leaving? How about it? Hearing this, everyone thought for a while before nodding their heads. If they continued like this, they would not be able to walk for long before they exhausted all their energy. Resting for a while before continuing forward was undoubtedly a good idea. I agree as well. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and did not have any objections. They had also realized this before, so it was necessary for them to stay for a while. Since that's the case, let's rest here for a while. When everyone's energy has more or less recovered, we'll continue forward, Chun Feng said. As soon as he said this, everyone sighed in relief and sat down to recover their energy. The Di family's cultivators quickly appeared outside. Di Xiaofeng and the rest were originally prepared to come out as well. However, they were rejected by Di Beichen. You guys recover your energy first. These demonic beasts are very strong. You guys will be in charge of leading the next group. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Don't worry, Di Beichen and I can handle it. And with our cooperation, when Xiren added with a smile, are you sure? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but worry. Di Beichen and the others had also used up a lot of elemental energy. Yes. All right then. Be careful. After the decision was made, Di Beichen, Wen Xiren, Mo Yunjue, Sheng Guanying, and Ao Lingxiao moved forward while Bailey Hongzhuang sat behind them. Although the effect of the zither attack was slightly weaker than before, it was still quite effective. As long as they worked together, they should be able to stop him. At the same time, some of the disciples of the Di family were also by their side. They surrounded the recovering cultivators in the center and defended against the attacks of the demonic beasts. Zither music poured out from Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. With Bailey Hongzhuang as the center, her elemental energy spread out in a circle, blocking the attacks of the demonic beasts. Di Beichen held the emotion-severing sword in his hand. His valiant and sharp elemental energy turned into a dazzling sword ray. Everywhere it passed, the corpses of the demonic beasts exploded. Xiren and the rest were not weak either. Now that they were not rushing forward, there was no need for them to use their elemental energy to open a path. The best thing to do was to stall for time and defend against the demonic beasts so that everyone could have more time to recover. Chapter 50-42. They naturally knew that this method was the best way to stall for time. However, at the same time, this method also meant that they had to be even more careful. The slightest bit of carelessness could result in injuries or even death. At the very least, they did not dare to use this method previously. That was because, in their opinion, as long as the elemental energy in their bodies was exhausted, they would be able to enter the center of the group to rest. Since that was the case, why did they still have to take such a risk? For a moment they could not understand why Beichen and the rest were doing this. Don't they know that this is a very big risk? Is it worth it to waste so much effort to stall for time? A cultivator could not help but sigh with emotion. At a time when everyone was thinking about their own benefits, Beichen and the rest's actions caused him to have a peculiar feeling in his heart. Without mentioning anything else, I truly admire Beichen and the rest. A gentleman is magnanimous. They are the embodiment of this phrase. If you ask me, without mentioning the benefits of the family, just from my own point of view, this kind of person is what I admire the most. You're right. Chu Yingming and the rest are indeed very powerful. However, when it comes to conduct themselves, they can't compare to Beichen. Everyone couldn't help but discuss. Along the way, they couldn't help but be impressed by Beichen and the rest. That was because the performance of Beichen and the rest gave them a completely different feeling. This feeling was as if their souls had suddenly been purified. Chu Yingming and the rest originally wanted to see Beichen and the rest get injured. It would be best if they lost their lives. That way they would be able to save some effort. However, they did not expect that everyone would suddenly compare them. Moreover, Beichen was completely above them. This caused him to be unable to suppress his anger. Inexplicably, why was he being stepped on by Beichen? After hearing everyone's discussion, a trace of approval appeared in Chen Feng's eyes. It was also because he saw such a shining point in Beichen and the rest that he was willing to stand out. Over the years, the cultivators he had met were all like Chu Yingming and Jun Lingxuan, who placed their own interests above all else. It was rare for him to meet a friend who could confide his back to him without any scruples. However, he understood that Beichen and the others were like that. Even though Beichen had become the young master of a family in the upper realm, he did not look down on Bailey Hongzhuang. Similarly, his attitude towards his friends in the lower realm had never changed. If it were anyone else, it would be very difficult for them to do this. Bailey Hongzhuang performed her music, and the beasts also joined the battle. Chapter 50-43. Although Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't figure out the uses of this energy, she knew that it would only bring her benefits. Normally, she would have to spend a lot of effort to refine her yuan energy, but now that she could directly obtain such pure energy, she wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. She didn't hold back at all as she used her zither technique, causing a large area of effect attack to appear. If it was said that the elemental energy gained from killing a single demonic beast was almost undetectable, then the elemental energy gained from killing a large number of demonic beasts was extremely gratifying. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes shone with a bright luster as her attacks became increasingly powerful. At the same time, Beichen and the others' attacks were also abnormally strong. I feel that this origin energy seems to be very helpful for my own improvement. When Xiren raised his eyebrows slightly, another demonic beast had died under his sharp sword. Shangguan Yingying nodded. I feel that training here will be even more effective. Not only will we be able to improve ourselves, but we'll also be able to reap some benefits. The only downside is that we don't know when we'll reach the end. Ao Lingxiao sighed. When they were in the primordial chaos ring, they knew that they would only need 3 days to leave, but now they didn't know how long they would have to stay here. It was precisely because of this lack of confidence that they felt a trace of torment. Don't think too much about it. Mo Yunjue's expression was calm. Ever since he was young, he had been through this kind of group battle. Therefore, he didn't feel too bad about this situation. Seeing how proud they are, I want to see how long they can last. Jun Lingxuan sneered. Beichen and the others' high fighting spirit made him feel very unhappy. He originally wanted to embarrass Beichen and the others, but who would have thought that they would only use him as a foil for Beichen and the others? They're just newborn calves who aren't afraid of tigers. Nangong Yuqing also had a disdainful expression. They liked to show off in front of others. Let's see if they can hold on for long. Most people would only feel that it was unbearable when faced with such a situation. The performance of Di Bei-chan and the others was just an act in his eyes. Xiao Suo didn't say anything, but she agreed. She only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would make a mistake. Only then would she feel a little better. Chu Yingming was silent as he swept his cold gaze over Di Bei-chan and the others, his gaze filled with resentment. If he didn't kill them, it would be difficult for him to vent the dissatisfaction in his heart. Just when everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would not be able to hold on for long, they found that they were able to withstand wave after wave of attacks from the wicked beasts. Not only that, but there wasn't the slightest trace of exhaustion on their faces. Instead, they became more and more courageous as they fought. Their fighting spirit soared. Even though they weren't far away, they could feel the fighting spirit in their hearts. Wave after wave of demon beasts fell. With Bailey Hongzhuang's zither music in everyone's attacks, there was no gap between them. Originally, the Di family's disciples also felt that this situation was very troublesome, but after seeing their young master and young madam's coordination, their mood was affected. It was as if this wasn't an unbearable problem. On the contrary, it was a test for them. Chapter 50-44. Young Master and Young Madam's fighting strength is truly abnormal. It's already been so long, but their fighting strength hasn't weakened at all. That's right, we used a lot of spirit energy before. It's not just the Young Master, but Young Master Mo's fighting strength is also amazing. As time passed, the crowd began to discover the source of the problem. Logically speaking, even if this kind of fighting method saves spirit energy, it should still be within a certain range. However, Di Bei-chan and the others had persisted for far longer than they had imagined. Most importantly, they had just experienced a huge battle. In all fairness, even if they were in their peak condition, they wouldn't be able to last as long as Di Bei-chan and the others. Some of the Di family's cultivators had already changed, but Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were still at the forefront of the battle and didn't show any signs of exhaustion. It was to the extent that the disciples of the Di clan were affected by their emotions, and their battle prowess was even higher than usual. Jun Lingxuan and the others who had been waiting to watch a good show could no longer remain calm after seeing this scene. After a period of rest, their spirit energy had already recovered. Damn, how did these guys persist for so long? Nangong Yuqing furrowed his brows. This situation was too strange. It was completely beyond his expectations. Di Bei-chan's cultivation was slightly lower than his, but he was still able to persist for so long. It was truly strange. These guys are strange. Chu Yingming's eyes were gloomy. He had long felt that these guys were strange. If he could deal with these guys, he would be able to obtain the secrets in their hands. This was undoubtedly what he wanted the most. It is indeed strange. Jun Lingxuan didn't have time to be dissatisfied. His mind was filled with thoughts of how Di Bei-chan and the others had persisted for so long. One had to know that endurance was extremely important for cultivators. However, increasing one's endurance was much more difficult than increasing one's strength. How did these fellows from the lower realm increase their endurance to such a level? He really couldn't understand. Not only them, but Di Xiaofeng and the others' eyes were also full of splendor after seeing this scene. It wasn't until this moment that they understood why Di Bei-chan and the others were so confident. It was because their endurance was simply amazing. Bei-chan and the others are really amazing. I'm afraid none of us can match their endurance, right? Lin Taxing looked at Di Xiaofeng. This discovery was really amazing. Previously, he only knew that Bei-chan and the others weren't weak. Now he realized that what he knew was only the tip of the iceberg. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. On this point, I am ashamed of my inferiority. If we make it back alive, I'll definitely ask Bei-chan and the rest how they did it, Lin Chanqian said slowly. I'll have to learn from them too. Once the battle reached its climax, it was obvious that whoever could last until the end would be the winner. Lin Chanqian was. Hearing Lin Chanqian's words, Di Xiaofeng and the others' gazes changed slightly. They made up their minds to learn from them when they returned. Compared to everyone's amazement, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were immersed in their own gains. Chapter 50-45. At the same time, the other cultivators had envious expressions on their faces. If possible, they would also like to consult Dibeichen and the rest. However, apart from their own disciples, such a secret could not be told to anyone else. Chu Yingming and the rest exchanged glances. The more outstanding Dibeichen and the rest were, the greater the threat they posed to them. If they didn't deal with them quickly, it would only cause them endless trouble in the future. More importantly, Dibeichen's method of buying people's hearts was extremely powerful. It was obviously his first time participating in the training and almost no one here knew him. However, under such circumstances, he was still able to quickly enter everyone's line of sight. Furthermore, his influence had already reached the same level as Chun Feng's. With such ability, even Di Xiaofeng would have to admit defeat. After passing this trial, we must kill him, Chu Yingming transmitted as he looked at Jun Lingxuan and the rest. Hearing that, Jun Lingxuan and the rest exchanged glances and nodded inwardly. This person's influence was already so huge. If he was allowed to continue growing, he would probably become a huge trouble in the future. In my opinion, there are so many demonic beasts here that we can't even see the end. Why don't we just increase our cultivation here? Xiren's lips curled up into a faint smile. Although the long battle had caused him to feel tired, he was still happy when he thought of increasing his cultivation. After all, the process of increasing one's strength was originally boring. They were already used to it. That's a good idea. Mo Yunjua nodded. He agreed with this idea. Dibeichen chuckled. This will depend on everyone's thoughts. The reason they could kill the demonic beasts without any worries was because they knew that once they couldn't hold on anymore, there would be someone behind them to help them. If there was no one to help them, they wouldn't be able to reach this step. Ao Lingxiao shrugged. If we can increase it a little, then so be it. As he thought of this, he couldn't help but look at Ao Zhengquang behind Jun Lingxuan. So many people had already died, yet Ao Zhengquang was still alive. He was truly a scourge that lived for thousands of years. However, this was also good. He wanted to personally kill this bastard to avenge his parents. At first, everyone only thought that Dibeichen and the others had great endurance, and they admired them very much. However, as the time went beyond their imagination, they were shocked. This was because he had persisted for far too long. Their essence energy seems to be limitless. How did they do it? It's not just their elemental energy. They haven't shown any signs of fatigue even after fighting for so long. Don't tell me they don't get tired? Everyone looked at each other, their hearts filled with doubt. How did these people cultivate on a daily basis? If that was the case, then how terrifying would their daily cultivation be? For a moment, countless contrasting thoughts flashed through everyone's minds. The only thing they had in common was that they had completely changed their view of the cultivators from the lower realms. Who said that the cultivators of the lower realms were inferior to them? These guys in front of them were much stronger than most of the people present. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not continue to hold on after sensing the changing gazes of the crowd. Instead, they chose to switch people out. If they wanted to continue, they could do so. However, they did not want to reveal all of their trump cards. Chapter 50-46. When they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had finally been replaced, everyone heaved a sigh of relief and their hearts finally calmed down. Chu Yingming followed closely behind. When he passed by Dibeichen, he said coldly, "Petty tricks. Don't be too proud." Hearing this, Dibeichen glanced at him indifferently. "I didn't expect you to pay so much attention to me." Chu Yingming's voice faltered. Faced with this, he didn't know how to respond. Dibeichen's lips curled into a mischievous smile, full of mockery. Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou couldn't help but look at each other. Their hearts were filled with complex emotions. Everyone thought that Dibeichen and the others had already used all their strength. However, they understood that this wasn't the case. The powerful techniques that Bailey Hongzhuang used to deal with them had yet to be used. As for Di Beichun, they also didn't know if he was hiding any other techniques. As for these techniques, unless it was a matter of life and death, they probably wouldn't use them. Therefore, they couldn't determine the true strength of the other party. The only thing they could confirm was that the strength that they had displayed was enough to make them feel a chill in their hearts. Following this, everyone used the method of walking and resting. Whenever everyone had used up too much origin energy and needed to sit down to recover, everyone would stop. If most people had sufficient origin energy, they would choose to continue walking. During this process, their progress was quite good. However, there were also cultivators who died because of carelessness. However, after walking for a while, they suddenly realized that the demonic beasts in front of them had changed. They were even stronger than before. These purple lightning cloud-spitting beasts' attacks have lightning attributes. Their destructive power is even stronger than the green demon beasts. Damn it! Is this immortal cloud mystery realm trying to play us to death? Who knows what other demonic beasts will appear if this continues? The sudden change caused everyone who originally had some hope to fall into despair once again. Facing the purple lightning cloud-spitting beasts, the pressure they had to endure would greatly increase. Originally, everyone had used all their strength to ensure their own safety. Now that they were facing such a situation, it was even more difficult to ensure their own safety. Beichen, this is really bad. Di Xiaofeng's eyes darkened. The purple lightning cloud-spitting beast specializes in speed. We definitely can't let it get close to us. Otherwise, the paralysis effect of the lightning will slow down our reactions. Coupled with the sneak attacks of other beasts, we will be in great danger. Hearing this, Di Beichen's face turned serious. He had long expected that this test would not be simple, but it seemed that he had still underestimated it. There's nothing we can do about it. We can only choose to continue. Everyone, keep your spirits up and don't get distracted. If you do, you'll lose your life. Emperor Xiaofeng raised his voice and reminded the cultivators of his family. As the leader of the team, his responsibility was to ensure the safety of his team's cultivators as much as possible. Otherwise, even if he returned alive, he wouldn't be able to face his family. Yes, the cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family all nodded their heads and braced themselves, not daring to relax for even a moment. Along with the appearance of the violet lightning cloud spray beasts, the speed of everyone's advance slowed down. Correspondingly, the consumption of their essence energy became even faster. Chapter 50-47. One after another, cries of alarm mixed with screams of pain resounded. After fighting for so long, everyone was already mentally and physically exhausted. Coupled with the increase in the combat power of the devil beasts, the situation started becoming one-sided. The injuries on the cultivators increased without stop. There were even some who were careless and lost their lives. The number of casualties started increasing rapidly. As they saw this, everyone couldn't help but become nervous. The more people there were, the higher the possibility of them surviving. The moment the number of cultivators that died increased, they might end up staying here forever. What should we do? Everyone started panicking. Nervousness and panic were contagious. Immediately, the number of injured cultivators increased greatly. Everyone, calm down first. Chun Feng raised his voice and shouted, "It's pointless to be anxious now. The only thing we can do is to continue walking." However, everyone's dissatisfied voices became louder. If we had known earlier, we wouldn't have come here. If we had stayed here, we would have been able to protect ourselves. Is there any point in saying all this now? Chun Feng's expression was ice cold. If you don't want to leave, you can continue staying here. If you want to leave, we can continue our journey. As soon as he said that, everyone's face was filled with anger. However, they did not dare to flare up. At a time like this, the moment they separated, they would be done for. At this moment, Chu Yingming's gaze landed on Xiao So. "Xiao So, aren't you the next holy maiden of light? Using the power of light can have a healing effect." As Chu Yingming's voice faded, everyone's gaze landed on Xiao So. The reason the power of light was so highly regarded was because it had a healing effect. Moreover, it could also increase everyone's combat power. Under such circumstances, the power of light could be of great help to everyone. Previously, everyone was immersed in panic and had forgotten about this. Only when Chu Yingming reminded them did they realize this. Seeing everyone's attention on her, Xiao Soa's eyes flashed with a trace of panic. In fact, she had thought of this long ago. However, she had never used it. The reason for this was naturally because she was worried that if Bailey Hongzhuang used it at the same time, everyone would discover the problem. However, now that Chu Yingming had raised this problem in front of everyone, she had no reason to not use it. Xiao Soa, hurry up and use it. Look at the situation now, you have to do your part. Isn't the role of the Saint of Light to help everyone out of despair? Why aren't you reacting? Everyone's eyes were filled with doubt, and some couldn't help but criticize him. At this time, everyone was doing their best. Xiao Soa clearly had the ability, but she didn't make a move. Jun Lingxuan also had some doubts. In fact, when he confronted Di Beichen, Xiao Soa's reaction had already made him feel very strange. Later he also asked about this, but Xiao Soa never gave him an explanation. After everyone's reminder, Bailey Hongzhuang also remembered the use of the light attribute. In fact, she hadn't been cultivating light energy for a long time, and most of her mind was filled with cultivation methods. She didn't have a very good understanding of them. However, she did know that there were some enhancement in healing effects. Master, I know what to do. Chapter 50-48. Naturally, this memory also included the use and method of using the light energy, but it had been quite busy since coming out, so it did not tell Bailey Hongzhuang in detail. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, and she quickly said, "Tell me about it?" In fact, this method is very simple, just change the way to use the light energy. Master, just remember the chant and the way to use the power. Then Xiao He told her the method in her memory. Fortunately, this method was not complicated, and Bailey Hongzhuang was very smart, so she quickly understood. So, it's already like this, just use it, don't worry so much. Jun Lingxuan could not help but say, "Yes, sister." Xiao Sudong nodded, "I feel like these people are going to eat us up." Seeing this, Xiao Soa's face flashed a trace of hesitation, and finally turned into a thick helplessness. In the next moment, the light energy was released from Xiao Soa's hands, and she gradually began to chant. The chanting voice with the light energy swept through everyone's heart like a spring breeze, and the fatigue on everyone's body seemed to be healed in an instant, and they became much lighter than before. Discovering this change, everyone's faces finally burst into a smile. The fatigue of their body and the soreness of their muscles were also important factors that affected their performance. Now that their fatigue had been reduced, they only felt that their whole body was much more comfortable. The Holy Maiden of Light is really capable. Just this method alone is already very powerful. A series of praises sounded. The long-term high-intensity battle made everyone physically and mentally exhausted, and now that they were relaxed, they felt light and refreshed. That's right, the position of the Holy Maiden of Light has not been inherited for so many years, and Xiao Sou is the only one who has appeared in all these years. Her ability naturally cannot be underestimated. It is because of this identity that Xiao Sou can become the pride of the heavens. For a moment, everyone was full of praise for Xiao Sou. And in the future, if Xiao Sou did not make a move, their situation would not have improved. Feeling the change in everyone's attitude, Xiao Sou was also happy. But her eyes unconsciously fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. She was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would do the same, but after thinking carefully, she suddenly remembered that the chanting was a method mastered by the Holy Light Assembly. Bailey Hongzhuang had not been in the upper realm for long, and most likely just started cultivating the light energy, but she probably did not master the chanting method at all. Thinking of this, the worry in her heart suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by pride and satisfaction. In this way, this was the best time for her to perform. Previously, she had been shrouded in Bailey Hongzhuang's light, and it was impossible for her to make a comeback. But now she wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to completely suppress Bailey Hongzhuang. Xiao Sudong's eyes were filled with surprise and admiration, and holy power spread out with Xiao Shou as the center, like a drizzle moistening the dry earth, inspiring every cultivator. Big sister should have used her big move long ago, and not let Bailey Hongzhuang be proud for so long. Nangong Yuqing also laughed and said, "Not bad, Bailey Hongzhuang is also of the light attribute, so what? In terms of light energy, no one is Miss Zhao's opponent." Chapter 50-49. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed her light energy, I felt that her energy was purer than Xiao Sou's. Perhaps it was an illusion? Xiao Shou is the next saint of the light world. So what if Bailey Hongzhuang's energy is purer? The secret techniques of the light sacred assembly are never divulged to outsiders. Naturally, Xiao Shou is the one who has mastered most of them. Furthermore, both of them have the same attribute. As long as Xiao Shou becomes the saint of the light world, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for her to make life difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang in the future? Instantly, the cultivators could not help but sigh. It would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to perform well in the light attribute in the future. Jun Lingshuan looked at the pure and beautiful Xiao Shou beside him as a smile appeared on his handsome face. Indeed, as long as he could marry the saint of the light world, not only would he not be inferior to Di Beichen, he would be even better. This was because the saint of the light world was backed by the light sacred assembly. That was equivalent to pulling the entire sacred assembly's power to their side. The light sacred assembly was the most powerful force among all the sacred assemblies. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had become a deacon in the Alchemist Guild, as long as she was not the president of the Alchemist Guild, Bailey Hongzhuang could not be compared to Xiao Shou in this aspect. However, just as everyone was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely lose in this aspect, Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed her light energy as well. Noticing this, the crowd was stunned at first. Then they could not help but shake their heads. Bailey Hongzhuang is still young and impetuous. She actually wants to compete with Xiao Shou in this aspect. How could she possibly win? Indeed, I admire her in other aspects as well. However, she's asking for humiliation in this aspect. No one could deny Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, but at this point, there was absolutely no chance of victory. Lin Yi and others couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. In this case, it was fine if she didn't use it. If she didn't use it well, the situation would be very unfavorable to Hongzhuang. Second cousin-in-law hasn't been in the upper realm for long. I heard that her cultivation method was the most external method given by the Holy Light Assembly. She even took the cultivation method from her family. Lin Yi frowned. She had heard about it from her aunt before. With Lin Yi's words, the worry in Lin Chanqian and others' eyes intensified. This situation was truly worrisome. Compared to everyone's worries, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared to be very calm. In fact, she was just trying to see if she could do it. After learning the method from Xiao He, she began to try it out. It had never been important to her whether she was in the limelight or not. On the contrary, in such a dangerous situation, saving her life was the most important thing for her. As long as it could help, she was willing to try. Bailey Hongzhuang just opened her mouth, and the sound of chanting sounded, but the healing power of the light attribute was not successfully displayed. Seeing this scene, Xiao Shou couldn't help but sneer. Her pretty face was full of ridicule. Bailey Hongzhuang, you have only cultivated the light attribute for a short time. You can't chant it. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang, you should hunt the beastkin properly. Don't humiliate yourself. Xiao Sudong's eyebrows were full of pride. At this time, he naturally didn't mind stepping on Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 50-50. Isn't it because I don't want you to lose face? Xiao Sudong shrugged, the corners of his lips curling upwards in the eyes of Lin Chanqian and the others. I'm just reminding you out of kindness. Don't take my kindness for granted. Ayo! Lin Chanqian cried out. So you're saying that we have to thank you? If you want to thank me, I don't mind. Xiao Sudong proudly twisted his body, his face full of smiles. Beichen. Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen with some worry. He didn't feel that there was anything shameful about this, but he was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would force herself to do this. Di Beichen shook his head. Don't worry. Hongzhuang isn't someone who cares about face. She naturally has her own reasons for doing this. Along the way, they had been ridiculed and denied by countless people. Their hearts were already impenetrable. Just a few words of sarcasm couldn't hurt them at all. What's more, he also understood that his wife rarely came into contact with light attribute cultivators, so Xiao Sou's chant at this moment might be very useful to her. If they could seize this opportunity to improve their understanding and use of light energy, it would be extremely worthwhile. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng nodded. Even though the worry in his eyes hadn't completely disappeared, he didn't say anything else. Bailey Hongzhuang tried 2 more times, but she still didn't succeed. This time her chant had a healing effect, but it wasn't stable enough. It was obvious that she was still lacking. However, this scene was even more laughable in the eyes of others. Bailey Hongzhuang really won't give up until all hope is gone. Even at this point, she still isn't willing to give up. Nangong Yuqing sneered, shaking his head. Chu Yingming chuckled. If she were to give up at this time, wouldn't she be even more of a joke? Hearing you say that, it does make some sense, haha. Xiao Sou also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with contempt. She felt that her previous worries were unnecessary. Even if she didn't know why the other party's light energy was purer than hers, as long as the other party didn't know how to use the light energy, it was impossible for him to surpass her. The only thing she needed to take note of was not to let the other members of the Holy Assembly discover Bailey Hongzhuang. She was always worried that Bailey Hongzhuang's elemental energy was so pure. Would she be qualified to compete for the position of Saintess of the Holy Light? She could not let such a thing happen, so she had to get rid of Bailey Hongzhuang before others found out about her ability. This way no one would be able to threaten him anymore. However, as Bailey Hongzhuang kept trying, her expression began to change. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang fail again and again, Xiao Sudong laughed as if he was looking at an idiot. However, he noticed that Xiao Sou's expression was a bit strange. He couldn't help but ask, "Big sister, what's wrong?" Chapter 50-51. However, Xiao Sou could not continue to mock her like everyone else. This was because she realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's chanting was getting better and better each time she tried. The reason why no one noticed it was because her chanting time was very short. Every time she realized that something was wrong, she would stop. And the next time she chanted, the previous problem was corrected. Among everyone, only Xiao Sou could sense it. But her heart was also filled with disbelief. She could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could identify the problem so quickly and correct it. One had to know that she had studied and corrected under her master's guidance for an entire month before she successfully mastered the chanting method. However, there was no one to guide Bailey Hongzhuang at all. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to discover the problem and correct it in the shortest time possible. This was simply impossible. Most importantly, she realized that under Bailey Hongzhuang's constant correction, she was actually about to succeed? How could this be? The D family's Bailey Hongzhuang is really stubborn. It's already at this point and she's still not willing to give up? I also feel hungry. It's enough to make a joke. If this continues, it's really embarrassing. She doesn't think about it. Even if they have the same attribute, how long has Xiao Sou been in the Holy Light Assembly? In this aspect, Bailey Hongzhuang can't compare at all. A cultivator couldn't help but say to Di Xiaofeng, in my opinion, let Bailey Hongzhuang perform the zither technique. Why waste time on other aspects? There was no time to waste in such a perilous situation. However, just as this cultivator's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's chanting did not stop. The pleasant voice entered everyone's ears like the sound of nature. When they suddenly saw this scene, everyone could not help but be stunned. Dense astonishment appeared in their eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang's entire body blossomed with a holy white light. She, who was already wearing a white robe, appeared even more elegant and ethereal. As her red lips opened and closed, a pleasant chanting sound spread out, carrying with it the unique healing properties of the light attribute, streaking across the hearts of everyone present. No one thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's continuous attempts would actually succeed. Therefore, when everyone heard this, they were still in a daze for a long time. Am I seeing things? He actually succeeded. Damn, how did he do that? Isn't it said that the Holy Assembly's unique chanting is very difficult to master? Everyone looked at each other. This was too shocking. Lin Qianqian and Lin Yi looked at each other. Their eyes were full of excitement. Hongzhuang is really amazing. She actually did it. Murong Jing couldn't help but look at Di Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng, your sister-in-law is really amazing. Di Xiaofeng smiled slightly, then gave Di Beichen a look. You're right. Bailey Hongzhuang's success did not exceed Xiao Sou's expectations. In fact, when she noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang's chanting was constantly improving, she already knew that it was only a matter of time before she mastered the chanting. However, when she listened to the chanting from the other party's mouth, her heart was still filled with an unprecedented shock. Chapter 50-52. In fact, this was not unexpected to her. The chanting effect itself was determined by the strength of the chanter and the purity of the power. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was not much inferior to her, but her primary power was purer than hers. This effect was naturally predictable. It was just that everyone had not noticed it for the time being. Once everyone noticed it, Xiao Sou's heart couldn't help but sink. She didn't understand how Bailey Hongzhuang did this. It didn't make sense at all. Xiao Sudong, didn't you think that Hongzhuang couldn't succeed before? Seems that you have misjudged. Lin Yi turned her head to look at Xiao Sudong. She felt very unhappy about this guy's arrogant and proud look before. The smile on Xiao Sudong's face also dissipated a little, but he insisted, so what if she succeeds? My elder sister is the Holy Maiden of Light. Her chanting effect can't compare. As he spoke, Xiao Sudong couldn't help but feel depressed. On normal days he had always been quite confident, but he didn't know why. Since entering the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, he had become less and less confident in facing the Di family. Even if he was full of confidence, he couldn't help but feel a little weak when he spoke about it. Xiao Sou originally thought that at least no one would compare her chanting effect with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, after Xiao Sudong mentioned it, everyone began to pay attention to this point. Thinking of this, she really wished she could seal Xiao Sudong's mouth. Why did he only cause trouble for her? Xiao Sudong, what you said is not quite right. Lin Taxing's voice sounded. Why do I feel that Hongzhuang's chanting effect is better than Xiao Sou's? In fact, Lin Taxing's voice also revealed a bit of doubt. He also felt that this was unlikely, but as he carefully perceived it, he still felt that this point existed. As Lin Taxing's voice fell, Xiao Sudong sneered without hesitation. Lin Taxing, are you kidding? My eldest sister is the next Holy Maiden of the Light. How can Bailey Hongzhuang be mentioned in the same breath as my eldest sister? I didn't think so before, but now that I think about it, I think Lin Taxing is right. The effect of Xiao Sou's singing seems to be inferior to Bailey Hongzhuang's. It can't be? Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even know how to sing before. How can she surpass Xiao Sou in such a short time? Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang displayed her light energy, I already felt it. Her elemental energy is even purer. If you don't believe me, feel it carefully. The Saint of Light had always been a hot topic. Even though the situation was critical at this moment, the cultivators who were recovering their origin power in the center couldn't help but discuss. And this discovery made them feel as if they had discovered a new continent. Jun Lingxuan looked at Xiao Sou's gradually pale face and suddenly understood what he didn't understand before. It turned out that the reason why Xiao Sou was unwilling to display her light energy at that time was because she was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would beat her. It was no wonder that if the crowd hadn't urged her to display her light energy, she also wouldn't have wanted to do so. If it were any other time, it would be a great opportunity for Xiao Seiwu to display her power of light, and she would definitely not miss it. Jun Lingxuan, How can Xiao Sou's light energy be inferior to Bailey Hongzhuang's? Chapter 50-53. Nangong Yuqing also looked at Jun Lingxuan. Currently, Jun Lingxuan was the closest to Xiao Sou, so he naturally understood her the most. However, Jun Lingxuan shook his head and fell silent. Seeing this, Chu Yingming and Nangong Yuqing looked at each other and their hearts sank. The sudden rise of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had brought about too many variables. Putting everything together, the Di family's future development really couldn't be underestimated. Look, Xiao Sou's face is so ugly. I'm afraid this matter is true. After someone's reminder, everyone saw that Xiao Sou's face was pale. Although she was still singing, the smile on her face was obviously a bit forced. Xiao Sou has been unable to become the Holy Maiden for so long. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang has shown such talent, do you think the title of Holy Maiden will eventually fall to Bailey Hongzhuang? Hearing this, everyone's faces changed. If it was any other time, they would have refuted this without hesitation because it was simply impossible. However, after putting everything together, they found that it really was possible. Once the successor of the Holy Maiden of the Light changed, it would really change everything. What nonsense are you talking about? This kind of thing is simply impossible. Xiao Sudong anxiously stood up and wanted to shut everyone's mouths. Correspondingly, the cultivators of the Di family and the Lin family were looking forward to it. If this really happened, it would undoubtedly be for the best. Once the Holy Maiden became the wife of the young master, the limelight of their family would be unparalleled. At that time, why would they need to be afraid of the alliance between the Xiao family and the Jun family? With the chanting of Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Se Wu, the simple injuries on everyone's body had been healed, and most of their fatigue had dissipated. However, some of the more serious injuries couldn't be healed in a short period of time. This kind of injury still needed to be treated. Although the situation had slightly improved, facing the attacks of countless demonic beasts, their disadvantage was becoming more and more obvious. Bailey Hongzhuang, one of us will be responsible for healing, and the other will be responsible for increasing the battle strength. Xiao Sou looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She really didn't want everyone to compare her with Bailey Hongzhuang. Rather than that, it would be better for the two of them to sing two different songs to divert everyone's attention. Of course, this was also a very necessary change. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In this kind of crisis, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, she was willing. Chapter 50-54. Although it had only been a short day, everyone's injuries were extremely serious. The combat power of the demonic beasts was too strong. Coupled with the fact that they were in peak condition, everyone was exhausted. After a long battle, the gap between them was completely revealed. If this continues, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on for more than 2 days. Lin Taxing sighed. It wasn't that he didn't have hope, but the situation in front of them really made it impossible for them to survive. Alas, everyone is either dead or injured. Although the number of people hasn't decreased too much, all of them are injured and can't fight. We can't go on like this. Lin Qianqian's expression was heavy. At this time, every moment of holding on was extremely difficult. Chun Feng, do you have a plan? Di Xiaofeng looked at Chun Feng. These endless demonic beasts were completely trying to exhaust them to death. Chun Feng's expression was also extremely complicated. The number of demonic beasts doesn't seem to have changed much. At present, other than continuing to hold on, we have no other way out. If this continues, I'm afraid that everyone's hearts will collapse before the demonic beasts finish them off, Di Xiaofeng said helplessly. Di Beichen paid attention to the situation around him, and his heart was also constantly thinking of countermeasures. He originally thought that since Xiao Xuanzi could fly, it would be a good choice if he could take them away from here. However, when he noticed that there were also flying demonic beasts behind them, he rejected this idea. It was simply not feasible. It was as Chun Feng had said. Apart from this method, there were no other methods to deal with this. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. Everyone's gaze turned to Bailey Hongzhuang, wondering why she suddenly stood up at this time. Immediately after, everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang directly walk toward the injured cultivators, take out medicine, and start treating the cultivators' injuries. What's going on? Chun Feng looked at Di Beichen with some astonishment. Miss Bailey also knows how to heal injuries? He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was an alchemist, so it was normal for her to know some basic healing methods. However, everyone's injuries were very serious. Those who had taken the healing pills had already taken them, but the number of pills was similarly limited. If Bailey Hongzhuang was not a doctor, it would be useless for her to help at this time. Don't worry. Hongzhuang is a doctor, Di Beichen replied. However, this voice made everyone present unable to help but be surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang was a doctor? Isn't Bailey Hongzhuang an alchemist? How did you become a doctor? Did Di Beichen say something wrong? At this time Lin Yi smiled and said, Jun Lingxuan, you don't know this. My second cousin-in-law is not only an apothecary, but also a very powerful doctor. Lin Yi, you have to be reasonable. She is just a cultivator from the lower realm. How can she know so many things? Xiao Sudong rolled his eyes. He only felt that Lin Yi and others were getting more and more exaggerated. They were simply demonizing Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was strong, it was impossible for her to master so many things at the same time. It's up to you to believe it or not. Lin Yi glanced at them. You don't have the ability, but you think others can't do it. You are really a frog in a well. Chapter 50-55. When the crowd saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had begun to treat the injured, they were somewhat doubtful and even resistant. After all, although they were teammates now, they did not have a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that she was suddenly treating them, they felt that something was not right. Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed the strange expressions on the crowd's faces. She stopped busying herself and turned around to treat the injured members of her family. According to her original plan, she would treat the severely injured cultivators and restore their combat power as soon as possible. This was the only way that everyone would be able to hold on for more time. However, she had forgotten that there was not enough trust between everyone. When they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had turned around to treat the injured members of her family, everyone could not help but secretly sigh in relief. However, they were even more curious about her medical skills. Compared to the doubts and worries of the cultivators from the other families, the cultivators from the Di family and the Lin family trusted her completely. Even Wu Wenfeng admired Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. Usually, it was very difficult for these guys to ask their young madam to treat them. Now they had actually rejected her. How ridiculous! The crowd watched as Bailey Hongzhuang accurately pierced out the silver needles in her hands and skillfully bandaged the cultivator's injuries. She continuously took out bottles of medicine and looked very professional. Obviously, she was very familiar with these methods. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills, coupled with the effects of the light force's incantation, healed the cultivator's injuries quickly. If everything that had happened before was not enough to convince everyone, after witnessing this scene, who would not believe in her medical skills? This effect was something that they had witnessed with their own eyes. Instantly, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with fervent gazes. They could not help but feel regretful. If they had known earlier, they would not have rejected Bailey Hongzhuang's treatment. Now they could only watch as Bailey Hongzhuang treated the injured cultivators. They were too embarrassed to ask for it. I never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually a doctor. Judging from this situation, I'm afraid that her medical skills are not ordinary. Everyone looked at each other, and many of them secretly nodded. The healing effect of the power of light was indeed good, but because there were too many injured cultivators, and there was only one person chanting, the effect was naturally not as good as the healing effect. With such frequent injuries, there was no doubt that it was best to have a doctor to treat them. He was simply a great savior. Murongjing nudged Di Xiaofeng and couldn't help but ask, Xiaofeng, is there anything your sister-in-law doesn't know? I don't know either. Di Xiaofeng spread out his hands, but the curve of his lips revealed his emotions. This is really godly. Morongjing's eyes were filled with amazement. Your family's Di Beichen really has good taste. With such a good daughter-in-law, I don't know how many people would be envious. It's useless to be envious. Beichen and Hongzhuang have a good relationship. I can tell. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed was very fast, and it didn't take long for her to treat the injuries of her family's disciples. At this moment, a cultivator from the Great Devil sect could not help but ask, Miss Bailey, can you help treat me as well? Speaking of their Great Devil sect, it could be said that other than a few forces, they were one of the forces that were relatively close to Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 50-56. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the man, and her red lips opened slightly. Are you sure? If I can't cure it. Miss Bailey, what are you talking about? No, I believe in you. The man hurriedly waved his hand. In fact, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's diagnosis and treatment just now, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were not bad at all. On the contrary, her medical skills were extremely exquisite, better than many doctors. The other cultivators also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's words were actually meant for them. After all, the situation where they didn't believe in Bailey Hongzhuang before was still vivid in their minds. Miss Bailey, I'll have to trouble you again. Chen Feng also smiled and said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. The indifference on her face faded a little, and there was a trace of gentleness. Di Beichen's friend was naturally her friend. You're welcome. Xiao Sou looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was in the limelight again, and her heart was simply going crazy with jealousy. Xiao Sudong looked at this scene in a daze. His mind was really unable to recover. When he thought of his mocking appearance before, he only felt a burning sensation on his face. It really hurts. After Bailey Hongzhuang treated the injuries of the Great Devil Sect's cultivators, the Cloud Sky Sect's cultivators also came to seek treatment. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang did not refuse, because now, only by being united could they have a chance to survive. Lin Qianqian and Lin Yi also followed Bailey Hongzhuang after seeing her busy appearance, while Di Beichen and others focused more on resisting the monster beasts. After another round of fierce attacks, even Di Beichen could not help but be injured. Bailey Hongzhuang also rushed over after seeing Di Beichen injured. Her elegant lotus-like face was filled with deep concern and worry. Beichen, are you okay? Di Beichen waved his hand, his eyes as gentle as water. I'm fine. It's just some superficial wounds, don't worry. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not pay attention to it. Instead, she carefully looked at Di Beichen. After confirming that the injury was indeed not very serious, she was relieved. You have to be more careful. The attack power of these monster beasts is very strong and fast. If you are not careful, you will be injured. This injury is very deep, it will be very painful to deal with it. Bailey Hongzhuang dealt with the wound while warning him. Her phoenix eyes looked at the ghastly wound and couldn't help but feel distressed. Di Beichen raised his lips and smiled. With my wife so concerned about me, I don't feel any pain at all. Bailey Hongzhuang listened with a straight face. She stared at Di Beichen with shining eyes. Even if it doesn't hurt, you can't get injured easily. My wife is right, your husband will obey. Di Beichen nodded. His handsome face was full of seriousness, as if he had received an order. Chapter 50-57. After hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at the source of the voice. With a look, they found out that the person who spoke was a disciple of the Chu family. The young master he spoke of was naturally Chu Yingming. Only now did Bailey Hongzhuang notice that Chu Yingming had received a very serious injury when he was defending against the demonic beast. There was a scratch mark on his neck, dripping with blood that kept oozing out. His flesh and blood rolled around, looking very frightening. If the wound was a bit deeper, Chu Yingming's little life might have been lost. Apart from that, there were also a lot of injuries on his body. Blood had already dyed his clothes red. Currently, Chu Yingming's complexion was deathly pale. He no longer had his previous arrogant appearance. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Chu Yingming was undoubtedly their enemy. If he were to fall here, it wouldn't be a bad thing for them. Di Beichen naturally understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. A lot of plans flashed through his mind. Right at this moment, Chun Feng said, "Miss Bailey, please help us. If something happens to Chu Yingming, the Chu family's cultivators will definitely not cooperate. At that time it will be very troublesome." Their situation was already precarious. Once the Chu family's cultivators make a ruckus, it will be very difficult to suppress them. If they are even slightly careless, they will be completely annihilated here. Following Chun Feng's words, Di Xiaofeng and the rest had complicated expressions. If they were to miss such a great opportunity, it wouldn't be so easy to find it again in the future. Chu Yingming's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. If possible, he didn't want to ask for help at this time. However, the injuries caused by the demonic beast were truly strange. Even after taking the pill, his condition didn't show any signs of improvement. He suddenly couldn't understand why everyone's injuries recovered so quickly after Bailey Hongzhuang's treatment. "Bailey Hongzhuang, please help us. No matter what, we are teammates now." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a while before walking over to Chu Yingming's side. "Master, are you really going to treat this bastard?" Xiao He looked indignant. It had been unhappy with this guy for a long time, and now it had to save this guy. It could not tolerate this. The situation now is special. If we don't help, once the people's hearts are shaken, all of us will be in danger. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with wisdom. Now they couldn't care less about the enmity between them. This is really depressing. Xiao He pouted. Being a human was so troublesome. She had to take care of so many things. If it were him, he wouldn't help. Looking at Xiao He's gloomy expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but smile and pat its head. "Don't be so gloomy. This is also an opportunity for me. I can save him, but I can also harm him. I can also poison him or something. Don't you think it's better than the previous plan?" Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao He was first stunned before its eyes became brighter. "Master, you're really too smart." Originally, to deal with Chu Yingming, they had to pay a huge price. Casualties were unavoidable. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.